City Council on Monday, February 25th, 2013. If you'd please rise and pledge allegiance with me. Welcome, everybody, and welcome to all of our viewers at home, and a special welcome to our scouts that are here with us this evening as well. So why don't we go ahead and get started. If I can have the roll call, please.
Ms. Berry? Here. Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Kalin?
Here.
Mr. Pepe?
Here.
Mr. Snyder?
Here.
Mr. Tartar?
Here.
Mayor Baroukh?
Here.
Thank you, Council.
If I can get a motion to adopt the meeting agenda, please.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Thank you. If I can get a second.
Second.
That's Mr. Snyder on the second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. The meeting agenda is adopted. We don't have any proclamations this evening. Are there any members of the public that are here to be sworn in for boards and commissions? Thanks, Veronica. We are now on to receipt of public comments, requests, and consent items. So I've got several speaker slips. I know some members of the public would also want to address the Lincoln project that we'll be taking up in our business, but if members of the public wish to address the council at this point, rather than waiting until we get to that item, that's fine, and all speakers will have 3 minutes. And if you'd please state your name and your address so we've got it for the record, that would be great. The first speaker slip that I have is Ms. Johannah regarding Peter Pan. And I know she's right there. Yep, she's right there.
Yep.
Like Peter Pan, I am crowing about Creative Cauldron's original production of Peter Pan and Wendy, which opens this Friday night at Creative Cauldron at Art Space. I'm Gina Kachechi. I am president of the board of directors of Creative Cauldron, and I do live here in the city. I'm a resident, a homeowner, a taxpayer, and a business owner, and a volunteer, and I live on Van Buren Street. So let me tell you a little bit more about this wonderful production, Peter Pan and Wendy. It is part of Creative Cauldron's Learning Theater, and it will star, in my opinion, 33 student performers who have been working happily and hard for the last 7 weeks under the tutelage of Creative Cauldron professional teaching artists Laura Connors Hall and Matt Connor. This is an original adaptation of the original Barry story. No relation, right, Johannah? And it includes 8 original songs written specifically for this production by Matt Connor. For those of you who are familiar with Creative Cauldron at Art Space, we make the arts, all of the arts, affordable and accessible to everyone across the generations. And Peter Pan and Wendy is exactly the kind of original theater, musical theater, that addresses the needs of everybody of all ages. 33 student performers, 2 professional performers anchoring the cast of 35, featuring, in addition, original amazing puppets by Margie Jervis, who is our scenic and set and costume designer. So for those of you who have been to Creative Cauldron at Art Space, you know what a magical place it is. Please come March 1st through the 24th, Friday and Saturday nights, 7:30, Saturdays and Sundays at 2 p.m. creativecauldron.org for tickets. Affordable tickets, $15 for adults, $12 for students and seniors, $10 per person for groups of 10 or more. Want me to go next again?
Can't wait for the next one.
Okay. Good evening, Council. My name is Gina Cachechi. I live in Falls Church on Van Buren Street. I'm president of the Board of Directors of Creative Cauldron, and I'm here tonight to make sure that you and the community knows about some wonderful awards that Creative Cauldron has received in the last few months. I know some of you already know about the Art Stars Award that we received this past fall from Virginians for the Arts, which included a check for $1,000 from Dominion Foundation, which is co-sponsor of the Art Stars. Excuse me. So let me read from this beautiful brochure about the Dominion Art Stars Award recipients. Creative Cauldron received a Rising Star Award. Creative Cauldron has been charming audiences and critics alike with its year-round live theater, music, and dance performances and programs since 2002. Guided by the belief that creativity is a fundamental need of the human spirit, whether a person is 8 or 98, Creative Cauldron strives to make learning experiences in the performing and visual arts available and affordable to the community it serves. In addition, Creative Cauldron joined forces with other nonprofits to establish the city as an arts and cultural district and played a critical role in the development of the area's first dedicated arts venue, Art Space Falls Church. Judges were impressed by the organization's business and government support, calling it, quote, a gem for this region of Northern Virginia. Let me tell you what the criteria included for the Rising Star Award. It's presented to an arts organization in each region of the state of Virginia that meets all of the criteria, which include extraordinary impact on the community, successfully develops community partnerships, earns business, legislative, and local community support, contributes to K through 12 education, and has demonstrated sustained excellence through the years. Each application was required to address specific criteria as well as supporting data that demonstrated how they met each criterion. The judges were not required to select a recipient in either the Rising or Shining Star categories if they felt an application did not adequately meet the criteria. Not every Rising Star Award was given this year. And we share in our region's accolades from Virginians for the Arts with Wolf Trap Foundation for the Performing Arts. They received the Shining Star for this region. We're very proud of this Art Star Award. It's tangible, visible evidence of the impact that Creative Cauldron has had and continues to have with your support going forward. And another proof of our impact is this wonderful email saying that waiting the governor's signature to make it final, $50,000 has survived the state budget process in Richmond. The city will be obtaining funds to be distributed to Tinner Hill, Creative Cauldron at Art Space, and some funds for the South Washington Street Arts District for signage and wayfinding to the art, cultural, and historic venues. So we're very proud of our accomplishments, and I will tell you, we work so hard for every single dollar, whether it's donated or earned income. And I thank you for your support in the past, and I count on your support for Creative Cauldron in the future.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is Mr. Edwin Henderson. Mr. Henderson?
Good evening. I'm Edwin Henderson. I live at 307 South Maple Avenue. I live in the home of Dr. Edwin Bancroft Henderson, my grandfather. And the good news that I have is that on February the 15th, he was directly elected into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame. And, the gymnasium in the community center is named in his honor. I think we ought to put maybe in that little circle there, E.B. Henderson or something. But I just wanted to share that because this is a really huge honor that's bestowed upon someone that lived here in this community and worked diligently to change. He was a change maker here in this community, and I just want to share it with everyone. There is a very small article in the news press and a promise of a larger piece as we get closer to the induction ceremony up in Springfield, and that's going to take place on September the 8th, as it usually does every year. But I just wanted to share that bit of good news with the council and with the community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slips that I have are from Laura Nichols and Dana Lewis.
Good evening. I'm Dana Lewis with the City Housing and Human Services Department, and we are part of the regional Northern Virginia Housing Expo team. And so I have invited Laura Nichol, who is leading our effort, and we'd like to invite you all to attend the 2013 Northern Virginia Housing Expo.
Hello. So I'm here to talk about pretty much my favorite topic these days, which is the Northern Virginia Housing Expo. And I'm supposed to not be holding the boards and talking at the same time, but I'm going to do that anyway. So basically, the Northern Virginia Housing Expo is a collaborative effort of 8 regional housing departments and housing authorities in Northern Virginia to put on a big regional housing fair. This is the 3rd year. It rotates from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. The first one was in Alexandria. Last year we were at Washington, Lee, and Arlington. And this year we get to come to the little city of Falls Church and be at Mary Ellen Henderson Middle School. And in fact, we get to be in the gym where my son played many a game for the George Mason Mustangs. Go Mustangs. So I'm very comfortable and happy to be putting on an event in there. We'll have probably 65 to 75 exhibitors. We have workshops, and they're all geared toward people who are looking to rent or buy in Northern Virginia. We have the different housing departments there. We have mortgage companies, we have banks, we have realtors, we have builders who have product for first-time home buyers. We're being allowed to use the concession, and so we're going to leave all of our money for the boosters. Go Mustangs, once again, a theme here. We're compensating any staff time that we're incurring at the schools. We're compensating the expo, which is all funded by sponsorships. And then the different regional participants donate their time, as Dana Lewis has and as Kevin Denton has from your very own wonderful housing department. So I would encourage you to stop by. It's on March 16 from 10 to 2:30 at Mary Ellen Henderson. Stop by, see the people. There will be about 750 to 1,000 of them there. And when you check in, make sure the people at the registration table, please tell them that you're here and that you're from the council so that we can announce you to the people in the expo hall when you arrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is from Mr. Gordon Thies.
Gordon Thies, 802 Ridge Place. Apologize for not being overly prepared. I kind of had to put this together quickly. I want to just go on record tonight with some concerns that have arisen with a potential development at 408 Van Buren Street. I was alerted last week, late in the week, of potential construction there, that a basement was being dug, and neighbors were wondering if a building permit had been issued. I apologize for the copies there of the grading plans and how small they are, but that's the way it is right now. So I contacted the zoning department. I do want to thank them because they were quite responsive in getting me the things that I needed. You might remember that Van Buren Street was a BZA appeal last fall that involved substandard lot splitting. And the second lot, the 408 Van Buren, is a corner lot with a paper street. And so what I've given you there is a grading plan from December that was approved, and on the second page, something from 2011 that showed what the developer could develop on a corner lot with a paper street that involved a 30-foot setback on a front yard on the paper street. And you can see from the grading plan that was approved in December that there's now a 10-foot setback for that potential development. Corner lots, as was reiterated in an approximately 1993 change to the code, require a 30-foot setback to a street, and a paper street is a street. And this has been recently reinforced with precedent with a paper street on Fulton and on Cherry, where the developer was forced to use a 30-foot setback to the paper street. And as I understand it, there's a section of the code, I think I have the right one here, it's Chapter 17, Section 17-34, that says that it requires city council action to abandon a paper street. And the only way I can determine that a zoning administrator would give a 10-foot setback to a paper street would be if the city had abandoned the street. And as far as I know, the council and the plan commission have not acted to abandon the street. So therefore, should be a 30-foot setback. And so I understand a building permit, at least as of Friday, had not been issued, and I want to encourage the city to not issue that, but that the council here direct the staff to take a good look at this and do the due diligence, if we intend to abandon the paper street, to do that the proper way. Otherwise, enforce the code as is written and as is shown in 2011 where the setback should be. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Steves. Mr. Shields, if you can take a further look into this issue and get back to council as necessary.
I will do that.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is from the scout troops that are here with us this evening. So if you all have a question or two, we'd be happy to take them. Or if not, that's okay as well. All right, I'm happy to come back at the end if you guys are all working on questions as well. The rest of the speaker slips that I have, oh, come on up. Or right at that mic right there. Thanks, Cindy.
When is the 5th grade at TJ going to be done?
All right. That's a great $1 million question. Mr. Shields, do you have any information about that?
The superintendent informs me that the expansion of the project at TJ Elementary School will be finished over the summer, in early summer, so that all the desks and all the furnishings can be moved into the new space, and it'll be ready to open on the first day of school next September.
Great. Thank you for your question.
We're looking forward to that.
Any other questions by the scouts?
I was going to ask when the Harris Teeter was going to be done, you know.
Mr. Mayor, I think we should know the name and address.
Yes, I think we should.
And not to discriminate, but to the previous questioner also.
Mr. Shields, do you want to shed some light on the process?
We have an application before the City Council for a land use approval for the Harris Teeter project, as well as for apartments that are above the Harris Teeter project. That does require a special action by the City Council. And the City Council is evaluating that application, and it's scheduled that it would take a good number of months to go through that evaluation, make sure we have lots of public input on it, to make sure it's the best possible project for the city. The location of the Harris Teeter? The location of the Harris Teeter is at the location of the current post office lot, where Anthony's Restaurant is, and where the city's empty 2 vacant parcels just to the east of the post office lot.
Are there other questions from? Let's see if the scout troops have any other questions. Oh, please, come forward to the microphone, and we've got a council member who asked for names. We'll skip the addresses.
You know what teachers are going to be in 5th grade?
It's a great question. Actually, we don't. That would probably be a good question for the superintendent of the schools. So she would probably know who the teachers are going to be the next academic year as we get closer.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Those are all the speaker slips that I have. Are there any members of the public that wish to address items that are not on the agenda? Then I'll also open it up to matters that are on the agenda as well. Yeah. Why don't you go on and come on up so we can hear you? And if you, we're being taped, so if you don't mind, and if you'd give us your name and your
My name's
address.
Tom McWigan. I'm a small business owner at 580 South Washington Street. And I got some petitions here signed by a lot of the public that are against this developing of the lot in between, I think it's 540 and 580. It's going to put a lot of small business owners out of work, not to mention the employees that I do employ, to build some kind of, grocery store or whatever they plan on developing.
Great. We'd be happy to take those petitions, if you don't mind handing them to our city clerk, and she'll make sure that we get them and get them into the record. There are other members of the public that wish to address items not on the agenda, or, I'm sorry, did you have?
I think we need to keep a little bit of the small in Falls Church, especially when it comes to the businesses. Let's keep Falls Church a small town,
Thank you.
okay?
Thank you. All right, I've got several speaker slips on the Lincoln Projects application. I'm happy to take those comments now or save them for when we get to that item on the agenda. Not seeing any, I'm going to go ahead and close the public general comment period, and we are on to a summary of the written comments. Veronica, if you don't mind summarizing the written comments that we have.
Angela and Patrick Mellon at 215 Forest Drive urged council to assist the Levine School of Music in their plan to relocate from Arlington to the city. Linda Blossbaum at 708 Timber Lane supported the Levine School of Music's plan to relocate to the city of Falls Church. Debbie Russ at 7364 Lee Highway in Fairfax County participated in the recent 4-session RAD program given by the police department. She thanked the police and specifically Detective Johannah and Sergeant Carter for their hard work and efforts. Melanie Rinzel also participated in the RAD program and thanked Detective Johannah and Sergeant Carter for their encouragement and support. She hoped that the class would continue to be offered in the future. And Ronald Brousseau at 607 Northwest Street urged the council to increase the number of ADUs in the reserve project. He also requested that the ADUs be for a minimum period of 30 years.
Thank you very much. We are on to council requests. Council members, any requests before we move on to the report of the city manager?
Just one,
Mr.
Mr. Mayor, if I
Duncan.
might. I've been out of town the last 4 days, but I was reading online to catch up on things, and in the Falls Church Post, there's a Budget and Finance Committee document which projects some assumptions about the tax rate. It's useful information, I think, and I just wanted to make sure that it would be provided to the community by posting on Granicus if that's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Other council member comments or requests?
I
Mr.
have a
Carter?
request. Can we get the Cub Scouts up here and get a photo?
Absolutely.
Guys, you want to come on up and get a photo?
Council, if you join me. Why don't we have the scouts up front?
Guys, you can go in front of the table.
Renee, do you guys want to come on up too? They're esteemed Denley.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for our scout troop for being with us this evening as well. Council members, any other requests?
I just,
Mr.
a
Snyder?
couple announcements, Mr. Mayor. I think this coming Saturday is the fundraiser for the homeless shelter, if I recall accurately. And a couple other things. The League of Women Voters held a session with the school superintendent and the police chief of police at, regarding school safety. And that was last week, and my understanding is that it was videotaped. So I would urge all of our citizens who are concerned with school safety to take a look at that very excellent program. Thank you.
Council members?
Mr.
Duncan?
Snyder reminds me that Thursday is the Stormwater Management Forum. Is that correct? Sponsored by all sorts of do-gooding organizations, which is at the Scout House, I think. Is that right? I'm sorry, I don't mean, the Legion Hall. That was called.
And
Legion.
council members, I believe that was noticed.
Noticed
so-
as a public, as a gathering of public officials, I think, sponsored by the Democrats, the Republicans, and the CVC.
Yep.
I believe.
Right. Anything else by council members? All right. Thank you very much. We are on to report of the city manager to council. Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor Baroukh, members of council. I'd like to just take a brief moment during the manager's report to shine a spotlight on our RAD program and ask Sergeant Joe Carter and Officer Justin Cuomo and Detective Cy Simone and Cherie Jonda to come forward. We've gotten a lot of compliments on our rape aggression defense class, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize our police officers who lead that program, along with our volunteers who help make that program happen. And just read a few additional quotes from people who have benefited from the program. But very briefly, this is a program that our police department offers free of charge for women ages 12 and older. There are 4 3-hour-long sessions taught by the police personnel and volunteers. And the approach is to address awareness, prevention, risk reduction, risk avoidance, and in the worst case, the basics of hands-on self-defense. It's all about self-reliance and community resilience so that we have a safer community. A couple of the quotes that we've gotten from people who've benefited from this class include, "The instructors have a lot of passion and empathy that is just phenomenal. All went above and beyond to really make sure we all knew what to expect, how to properly prepare, and to drive excellence." Another quote, "If everyone in the Falls Church Police Department has half the heart that this group does, I feel safer already knowing that they are there." And then lastly, a person wrote in to say, "The goodwill that these officers built is well worth whatever budget allocations go to this program and a lot more. I hope to see RAD and other programs that promote the Falls Church Police Department in such a positive light continue into the future." This has touched a lot of lives over the years, and it's great that we're able to continue it. And I just wanted to show a few pictures. This is our promotional brochure for the program that we've put together. Here is our team that I've already identified. And here they are with a picture of them along with their volunteers. And here they are in suit. So you can see that this is hands-on, this is action-oriented. It's not just classroom, where those who sign up for this class can practice the techniques that they're taught, which is much more real than just trying to imagine it. And here they are in action as well. So there's a good motto for the program. Sergeant Carter, I don't know if you'd like to say any words also on behalf of the group or any of the other members of the team.
Yeah, Justin couldn't be here tonight. He had a family issue he had to deal with, so he wants me to say thank you. For the past 10 years, we've been doing this 2 classes a year, and usually we have about between 30 and 35 women, not just city residents, but Fairfax County, Arlington, all over the place. So that should give you a kind of brief overview of how many lives we have touched. On top of that, it's not fair of me to sit here and take all of the credit. We do have volunteers from other police departments, George Mason University, Vienna Police Department, all the way down to Prince William County Sheriff's Office. They do come up, Fairfax County, they come up and they help us, and we assist them also. So it's within the law enforcement community. And being in law enforcement for 12 years, I know that no police department is really the best it can be without the involvement of the community, and that's the great thing here in Falls Church. Kathleen, who hates this right now because she's so shy, has been with us and really does all the legwork for our class and really makes it easy for us. She finds the locations for us, which, in the city we have. She sets up, does all the paperwork, so really all we have to do is show up and teach. She lives right outside the city, and she has been invaluable to this police department and to your community. So I would just like to thank her at this time. And we thank you for your support over the years, Mr. Shields. We thank you for bringing this to the attention of others, and we look forward to continuing this program. So thank you.
Thank you. Why don't we pause for a moment and see if council members have any questions or comments they wish to make about the program? Ms. Berry.
As some of you know, I was a volunteer instructor for, it was called SAFE, the Fairfax County Police, for about 2 years. I can only commend the difference between SAFE and RAD. That some of it is political, as we all know, but I can only commend the program. I was privileged to be part of it. I was privileged to see hundreds of women go through this program and really transform. We can have share a couple of stories about fight night and how everybody gets completely panicked right before it, and then comes out literally swinging by the end of it. It is I really feel it's a mandatory course for women of all ages, young ladies, at least in Fairfax. Young girls at the age of 12 could go if they're adult. I don't know if that's the case here in Falls Church as well, if there's an adult with them, but whether they're 12-year-old girls or young ladies going off to college, or women newly separated or divorced, or the whole spectrum, it is so important. And frankly, I'm a big fan of women coming back, repeating the course over and over again, because in the heat of the moment, if you can remember 10% of what you were supposed to remember, fantastic. But the more you can take the course, the better. And the fact that this is free of charge, I couldn't encourage people more to take this course, and thank you all for the work you do.
Thank you. Other council members? Thank you very much, and thanks for all the work. And I would have to say that I certainly was very touched by the letters of support that we got for the program, and clearly had an impact on the members of the community at large that were involved. So thank you all for making it a very educational and worthwhile program. Thank you.
Thank you. And it's an ongoing program, and as soon as the date for the next one is set, of course, we'll have lots of publicity on that. One other item just in the arena of bragging on our folks, I'm very pleased to note that the Community Appearance Alliance of Northern Virginia recently awarded the city an award for the Lincoln Park Rain Garden Project. And this award will be presented on March 26th at the Northern Virginia Association of Realtors. So I wanted to offer congratulations to Jason Widstrom and Shirley Street in our Public Works Department, and Danny Schlitt in our Rec and Parks Department for this award, and I'll talk with council members just about a little bit more details on the date of when that award will be granted, but that's nice recognition for the city. Lastly, we will have a forum on Thursday, February 28th, this coming Thursday at 7:30 p.m. at American Legion Post 130. To talk about stormwater. And this is sponsored by Citizens for a Better City. and it's an open forum. The panelists will include our recent members of the city's Watershed Advisory Committee. Dennis Szymanski will represent the WAC on the panel, and Bill Hicks will represent the Department of Public Works to talk about stormwater utility, talk about the program, what we're trying to accomplish with stormwater over the coming years, what the cost of those services will be, and ways that the council and staff are working right now to explore how to fund them. So this was discussed by the council at a work session several weeks ago as part of our outreach for this program. So we will discuss specifically the details of a stormwater utility and a fee based on impervious surfaces, and those details that the council has been briefed on, and get public input on that. It has been publicly noticed. All council members are welcome to come and to participate. That's all I have to report tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Shields. Council members, any questions or requests for Mr. Shields? Ms. Berry.
Mr. Shields, I have a question, and then I wanted to share something with the rest of council. Where are we in the process of the historic home delisting language? I recall that Cindy Garner provided some very thoughtful guidance to council and staff, and I can't remember if Mr. Snyder had asked that Ms. G review it and come back with new language to council. I'm confused about the process. Where are we? That's my question.
Well, the council did adopt the ordinance on second reading with an amendment to strike the languages that had all reference to the Traceries report.
Right.
So the action is complete. In terms of follow-up, we can discuss with council if there is additional follow-up needed on the big ordinance. Now, the next step that is anticipated would be the specific application for the property on East Jefferson Street. The process that's now been set forth in that ordinance is now by ordinance that property could apply for delisting, and the criteria would have to be met. It would be referred to the Historical Commission, et cetera, and the Planning Commission for its recommendation prior to final action by the council.
Okay. And Mr.
Please.
Mayor, and the second thing I wanted to bring to council's attention, and certainly to the city manager, is a very distressing email I received. You may recall that Stephen Siegel came to council a few weeks ago and spoke about pedestrian safety issues. This was in the context of conversations about safe routes to school and school crossings and the cameras on the school buses. He began his presentation by highlighting how difficult it was to cross West Street. This morning, a car struck a pedestrian in precisely the area that he was talking about. And this is one of those situations we never wanted to see happen, clearly. Perhaps the manager can give me an update on how the pedestrian is doing, and obviously we certainly hope he has survived the incident. But it just once again brings certainly to my attention, and I hope to the council's attention, not only the unsettling immediate issue, but the importance of a comprehensive pedestrian plan in the city, with an emphasis on moving people through and within the city in a complete, comprehensive, thoughtful way. We can't avoid all issues, but Mr. Siegel did take the time to bring this repeatedly to our attention, and regrettably, it's come to a distressing conclusion. So I just bring this to council's attention, and let's hope that we can move forward on thinking through some safe alternatives, especially in that particular very, very busily traversed area. Mr. Shields, do you have any update on this individual?
Councilmember Berry, if I could get back with the council on the latest information. I did get preliminary information in the morning, but that may have changed, and so rather than saying something wrong, I will get the accurate information to you.
Certainly, our thoughts are with this
Indeed.
individual and the family.
Ms. Berry, thanks again for for raising this important issue again with us. Other council members? Okay, we are on to business on the agenda, second reading of ordinances and other items requiring public hearing. Veronica, if you'd read the first item, please.
Item 10A1 is an ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Article 6 of the Code of the City of Falls Church Private Schools, Special Schools, and Daycare Facilities, and this is TO 13-04.
Council, this ordinance is now before the council for second reading and final adoption. One of the requests of council at first reading was to make sure that those who provide these services in the city have been contacted and that they're fully aware of the changes, and particularly if there are providers of these services for whom English is a second language, that the information is conveyed to them in a way that they can comprehend it. We do have a memorandum, I believe, in the packet that just speaks to that very briefly, that details our outreach efforts. We do believe, as a general statement, that those who provide these services in the city, all those who are currently licensed, are aware of these code changes and are generally pleased with the services that they get through Fairfax County and the fee structure associated with it. And so I have that update to report to the council, as this is now before you for second reading. Ms. Vincent is here to staff this item. If there are additional items that we need to convey, let's do that and then answer any questions.
I'm here to answer any questions you may have, along with Sue Richter.
Council, any questions? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a parent who raised two children through many years of daycare, I can say that one of the biggest concerns was when there was an evacuation for some reason from the daycare facility. So and there were multiple such occasions in my experience as a parent, because our kids were downtown and there were always bomb threats and who knows what. So I commend the language in the new document, which speaks to the importance of an emergency preparedness plan, an evacuation plan, and so forth. I just wanted to ask, presumably these locations in the city where there are daycare facilities are homes, so if a call came in to 911, is there any special way for the police to, connect it up pretty quickly to, oh, this is not just, not that every home isn't important, but this is actually a business with, multiple children under the roof. What I'm asking here is, it's especially important, I think, for a quick and specific response if a call like that would come in. Do the police connect up with your database of providers?
Well, what we did in connection with the planning department some months ago was to prepare not only a list of all the daycare providers and their addresses, but also a map showing where they're located in the city, and provided that to the department, and as well as, here it is right here, as well as to the fire marshal.
Thank you very much.
Other council members? Nancy, I had one question, and again, I think this is anything that we can do to make the facilities safer for children, both in our community and in the area, is a worthwhile endeavor. Is my understanding correct that most of this is pulling from Fairfax's code and essentially updating our code?
Yes, yes. What this did was mirror the Fairfax code changes.
And do they actually administer the licensing process for the city?
Yes.
Okay. And
for home daycare.
As far as the definitional section, which deals with defining what home daycare is, and council, I did have some exchanges. Just I wanted to better understand the scope of what we were doing. Is the definitional section also pulled from the Fairfax code as well?
Yes.
Great. And what I was getting at is that there may be other, not facilities, but other arrangements that parents are making that are pretty common that could be captured by this, that should be perhaps licensed under the code, and we may want to do a little bit of public outreach on that to make sure that that we're doing all we can be doing to address those types of situations. And what I'm referring to is things like nanny share or shared care facilities, et cetera, that folks are doing. When I read some of the language, it struck me as it's broader than how we typically think about daycare facilities, that it captures what we're actually seeing people do, like nanny share or other ways of managing childcare in the community. So I think we may need to do some public outreach on that and educating as well. And I think these safety measures are really, really important. But we should also keep that in mind of, not essentially families that may be doing this as far as an arrangement, but they're not doing it as a commercial enterprise as we would think about it. We need to make sure those situations are safe where multiple children are there as well. All right. Anything else by council members? All right. If I can get a motion, then I'll open this item for public comment.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TL 13-04.
Thank you. If I can get a second?
Second.
I'd like to open this item up for public comment. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Veronica, I don't.
Oh, this gentleman here?
Is it on this item?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll be happy to take comments on the other items on the agenda as we get to them at this point. Veronica, did we receive any written comments on this item? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close this item up for public comment. Council, any comments before we take a vote? Veronica, if you'd read the roll, please.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Charter?
Yes.
Mayor Baroukh?
Yes.
Thank you, council.
Veronica, if you'd read the next item, please.
TR 13-08 is a resolution to approve the Consolidated Plan Action Plan for the fiscal year 2014.
And council, I'll ask one of our housing specialists, Dana Lewis, to provide the staff report on this.
Good evening. Dana Lewis with the Housing and Human Services Department. The annual action plan is required by all localities that receive federal community development, block grant, and home investment partnership funds. It's a tool to measure progress towards the goals set forth in the consolidated plan, which is a plan that the city must do in order to receive these funds every 5 years. The FY 2014 action plan provides information on the city's planned CDBG and home activities to meet the goals outlined in that consolidated plan. In your November 26th, 2012 meeting, at that time, we pointed out how we wanted to use the funds, and City Council approved the use of the funds at that time. Some of the programs that were using CDBG funds for 2014 include a rental assistance program, emergency monetary assistance for rent and utilities, English as second language classes for eligible residents, exterior home weatherization and home repair for seniors and persons with disabilities, and interior home repair and rehabilitation for low to moderate income households. The action plan was advertised and distributed for public comment, and we have not received any public comments. All the activities described in the plan will be funded by federal CDBG and home funds projected to be, and projected is a big one, $99,265, and that's CDBG, and $21,771 of home funds. Approximately $231,000 in non-city funds will be used to supplement federal funds for CDBG, and $5,500 in city funds will be used as a match for home-funded activities. Other locally funded activities include all other federal, state, and local funds that our CDBG agencies receive. And I'd like to add, I know that we had a request to strike the mayor's name from anything that may go out, and that's because it may be reviewed by HUD officials at some point, maybe. So we will leave mayor on the document and remove the name. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to ask, on page 18, the table that says average household incomes, I believe the category, I'm pretty sure, that's listed 50 to 999,000 is supposed to be 50 to 99,000. I think that's just a typo.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yes,
That's,
definitely.
that's easy to fix.
Thank you for pointing that
Just,
out.
I guess a question and observation about that is, as I look at those numbers, they tell me that there are 980 households in the city of Falls Church out of 4,130 total households, right? So almost a quarter, whose average household income is less than $50,000 a year. Am I reading that table correctly?
No, I believe that's the total number, let's see. And these numbers come from the census tracts.
Right, I don't mean to put you on the spot, I just, I'm reading through this, there's always fascinating stuff that we get in our packets, and if that's really true, the numbers at the top end of the scale are kind of interesting. They resonate what you'd think, there's 2,300 households that make more than $100,000 a year, but if that's, I guess I'd like to know for future discussion if those data are what I just said they are, or they are something different, because, that kind of information would inform much of what we do here in terms of level of taxation and, effort to help people who are not as affluent as others and so forth. So that's a statement in the way of a question, I guess.
Okay, I'll double check these numbers and provide something written to you.
Okay, thank you.
Other council members? Questions? So there's one suggestion I would have, just given my unique situation, it may be odd if just my name is left out. Perhaps we can take out that sheet altogether, if that's permissible.
On the first page?
Yeah, just the first page cover.
Well, no, this is you're saying that has the city council?
Correct.
And all that. This is a format that Arlington provided to us.
Okay.
So I would be hesitant to remove the whole page.
If we can
because
talk about that, I just
Okay.
want to make sure that I don't have a conflict, even the mayorship listed on there. So if we can work through that issue, it's an
Okay.
issue that I've raised before.
Okay, definitely.
So if there's a way of removing that page, I think that would be best.
Okay.
Other council members, any questions on this? Okay. If I can get a motion, and then, and I do have the request that, again, that page be stricken at this point. If I can get a motion, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt TR 13-08 as amended.
Yes. If I can get a second.
Second.
Thank you. That's Mr. Duncan on the second. I'd like to open this item up for public comment, and don't believe I have any speaker slips on this item. Are there any members of the public that wish to address this item? Veronica, did we receive any written comments on this? I'm going to go ahead and close this item up for public comment. Council, anything further before we take a vote? Veronica, if you'd read the roll.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes?
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter? Mayor Baroukh?
Yes.
Thank you, Council. TO 13-08 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And council members, what I suggest that we do is take the next two items together, and they will be voted separately, and we'll take motions separately. Veronica, if you'd read the next two items together.
TR 13-07 is a resolution to amend the comprehensive plan of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, to change the designation of approximately 2.2 acres of land located at 540 and 580 South Washington Street, Real Property Code numbers 52-308-004 and 52-308-008 from business to mixed use on the city's future land use map. And TR 13-06 is a resolution to grant a special exception for residential development and height bonus for a mixed-use development on approximately 2.2 acres of land located at 540 and 580 South Washington Street, Real Property Code numbers 52-308 and 004, 52-308-004 and 52-308-008, known as Reserve at Tinner Hill by Lincoln Property Company.
Thank you.
Mayor Baroukh, members of council, but tonight council has before it two resolutions, as the clerk has just read, a resolution to amend the future land use map and a resolution to grant a special exception for this project. This is not an ordinance, so it does not require a formal first reading. The requested action tonight is for council to refer these resolutions and this application out to your boards and commissions to get the benefit of community input. Tonight, for our presentation, we will start with the planning staff report that will be delivered by Elizabeth Perry in our planning department, and she will provide a comprehensive plan analysis and analysis of the first and second criteria under a special exception ordinance and other analysis. We will follow that with a report from our economic development office, with Rick Goff providing a report on the fiscal impact for the project as produced by our cost revenue impact model. Following that, the developer will provide a presentation of the project. Dave Lasso will take the lead in that presentation on behalf of Lincoln Properties. A couple of key points as this application has been considered by staff and by the City Council's Economic Development Committee over the past several months. For mixed-use development in the city, a key criteria that we've articulated to developers is that a project to be successful must have a strong and compelling commercial component to it, a commercial component that will attract economic activity to the project, but also serve as a catalyst for future economic development, commercial economic development on adjacent properties. A second key point of discussion at the EDC has been the fact that this is essentially a four-sided building. There is no back of this building. And so we have worked with the developer to really push for the Maple Avenue frontage to not serve as the back of the house, but to maintain an active retail and an active pedestrian front on that building and as a complement to the activity on the opposite side of Maple Avenue. And I think also very importantly to serve as a catalyst for the future retail development of Maple Avenue as it heads north. A key concession that the developer has provided as part of these initial discussions on the fundamentals of the project is that the project, or the SE, if the council were ultimately to grant an SE, would not be final and would not be valid until they have executed a lease for a grocery store in the project. And the details of the grocery store will be presented in just a moment by the developer, but just over half of the retail space in the project is slated for that grocery store use, and that does drive a lot of the program for the commercial use of the first floor of the building. What that means is that this project will not proceed and it will not be built if that condition is not met. And that's an important point in terms of our discussion, and that if there's going to be the residential aspect of the mixed-use project, that it have this strong commercial component to it as well to meet the city's needs for economic development, for its fiscal condition, and also to attract that type of pedestrian activity that we're striving for in our comprehensive plan. With every special exception application, we do look at it through the lens of what's feasible from the market, what will drive the city's finances in a healthy and sustainable way, and what meets the city's community needs, our values for aesthetics, for design, for affordable housing, for the arts, for culture. And so those are the criteria which this project will need to be evaluated on as it goes through the process if the council does act tonight to forward it out to boards and commissions. So with that introduction, if I could allow Elizabeth Perry to provide a staff report. The staff recommendation tonight is that the council does act tonight to refer it out to boards and commissions so we can have the benefit of their expertise and input as we continue our discussions with the developer on the project. Ms. Perry.
Good evening. As mentioned, I'm Elizabeth Perry with the city's planning division, and the agenda item for this evening, or this agenda item, is a proposal known as the Reserve at Tinner Hill. The applications associated with this development are a comprehensive plan amendment and a special exception. And staff is here tonight to recommend that council refer these applications to boards and commissions for review and comment, and to schedule a public hearing on the applications for decision by council on May 13, 2013. This referral and this timeline will afford you the opportunity to get public comment on these applications to help inform your decision making. In terms of the application status, the staff has reviewed the application and provided staff comment, which was attached in your staff report. And the proposed timeline gives staff sufficient time to work with the applicant to address these comments and to conduct some additional staff analysis. In addition, the staff report contains draft voluntary concessions that were offered by the developer, and the city manager is still negotiating those with the applicant. And the timeline that we've proposed provides sufficient time to finalize those conditions for your review in May. I'm going to provide a quick summary of the project just to put in context some of the comments from the staff report, and then we'll run through the key points of the comprehensive plan amendment application and the special exception application. So the subject properties are located at 540 and 580 South Washington Street. They are zoned B3, which is a general business district. It allows a variety of business uses by right, but residential uses require a special exception approval. The subject properties are currently developed with approximately 5,600 commercial square feet of motor vehicle sales and repair uses. The mixed-use development known as the Reserve at Tinner Hill proposes the following: a neighborhood grocery store of approximately 25,000 square feet, restaurant or retail space of approximately 8,000 square feet, commercial lease space of approximately 10,000 square feet, 224 residential apartments, and a plaza of approximately 7,000 square feet. So the first application is an associated resolution is for an amendment to the comprehensive plan's future land use map. And as you know, the comprehensive plan is a guide, and there are several tools in this guide to help inform decision making. And two of those tools are the existing land use map and the future land use map. And those maps provide a visual depiction of the land use that exists today and the land use as the city envisions it in the future. And this is done on a parcel by parcel basis throughout the city. So why is this relevant? It's relevant because one of the criteria for evaluating a change in land use is whether or not the change will be consistent with the vision that the city has for this specific parcel. So for example, if you have a parcel that is designated for business use on the existing land use map, but the future land use map said it's for parks and open space, that is some support for supporting applications where there may be parks and open space on the subject property. So in the case subject, at 540 and 580 South Washington Street, we have properties that are designated for business on both the existing land use map and the future land use map. And you may think, well, that would therefore not support mixed use. But the maps in the comprehensive plan are one tool in the comprehensive plan, and we really need to look at the other tools in the comprehensive plan to get a more full perspective as to what the city envisions for this part of the city. So there are other parts of the comprehensive plan that actually support mixed use on the subject properties. The site is located in the South Washington corridor as identified in the comprehensive plan, and it calls for the following qualities: new, higher density redevelopment, structured parking, redevelopment that eliminates standalone automobile storage facilities, improvements to facilitate pedestrian crossings across South Washington Street, a positive image of the city as part of a gateway, and preservation of historic resources. And the subject application incorporates these elements. And again, because the comprehensive plan is a guide, it's not required that a comprehensive plan amendment be approved in order for the council to consider or approve a mixed-use development on these properties, but staff supports consideration of this application because of sound planning practice. There are certain circumstances when a comprehensive plan amendment is warranted, and these circumstances are a significant change has occurred in the area of the subject site since adoption of the comprehensive plan. Specific provisions of the comprehensive plan unreasonably limit the ability of the city to achieve more holistic objectives of the comprehensive plan, and/or there are oversights or inconsistencies within the comprehensive plan regarding the subject site. At minimum, staff finds that significant changes since the last adoption of the comprehensive plan warrant a mixed-use designation or consideration of one on the subject properties, including a mix of residential and commercial uses at the Pearson Square project on South Maple Avenue, a mix of commercial uses at the building known as Tax Analyst, also on South Maple Avenue, and a planned intermodal facility at the intersection of Hillwood Avenue and South Washington Street, which is in close proximity to this site and provides an opportunity to co-locate mass transit resources with a mix of users and with density, which is also supported by the comprehensive plan. Therefore, based on these findings, staff believes that there is support for consideration of a mixed-use designation on the subject properties. Moving on to the special exception applications. The special exception is, and the resolution is to allow residential development as part of a mixed-use project on property zoned as a business district, and to allow a building height of 85 feet where 55 feet is permitted by right in the B3 district. And the code outlines the primary and secondary criteria on which special exception applications are evaluated, and the staff report works through those criteria one by one. So what I'm going to do is provide some of the key points that summarize the overall intent and expectation of the special exception projects and what this application is proposing. So according to the applicant, the need for the height bonus is due, at least in part, to the proposed grocery use, which has been identified as a priority use by council and mentioned in several meetings of the Economic Development Committee and also in work sessions. As previously described as part of the comprehensive plan amendment application, the proposed development is consistent with many key elements of the comprehensive plan. The proposed design of the development is consistent with many of the key elements of the city's adopted design guidelines. Through voluntary concessions, the development proposes 14 affordable dwelling units. The applicant will be undergrounding utilities that are currently overhead. The project is being designed to earn a LEED Silver certification. There's also a new type of commercial use. It's a retail use that the applicant is calling portico retail. It's a type of commercial land use or commercial square footage we currently don't offer in the city. So that would be something new that we could offer to the community. And based on its design, it could be of interest to local and independent businesses, which is also part of the criteria that we use to evaluate special exceptions. The applicant is proposing to incorporate transportation demand management strategies, and that's to help offset any impacts that may be realized in the neighborhood based on the new uses, and staff is still working with the applicant to work on those. As mentioned by the city manager, one of the challenges to designing this site is that there is street frontage on all sides. And so the applicant has worked to propose and integrate a streetscape on all sides while still trying to integrate some of the service uses that are necessary, such as loading. And on one of the sides, we have a 7,000 square foot plaza, which provides open space, provides a gathering space, and creates a gateway into the city. So Rick Goff will provide a summary of the fiscal impact.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Attachment 4 of your packet has a summary of our fiscal impact analysis of the Reserve at Tinner Hill project. We feel that the best way to present the fiscal impact is to provide you with a range of estimates from best to worst case, if you will, of the gross and net annual revenue outcomes for the city. The givens that we worked with in our analysis are contained in the development program that was submitted by Lincoln, 224 residential units, and about 40,800 square feet of commercial space on the ground level of the building. Another given that we used is the commitment that half of the commercial space, or about 20,400 square feet, will be occupied by a grocery store. The developer, as mentioned, has agreed to condition the city's approval of the project on having a lease in place for Fresh Market. So using these given project elements, we locked into the fiscal impact model our real estate value estimates for 224 residential units of the kind and quality proposed, and we locked in a real estate value for the grocery store based on assessed values for comparable space. We also used grocery sales per square foot from regional fresh markets and similar stores. These inputs provide us with estimated tax revenue to the city from all sources, and we held those results constant in order to focus on the remaining square feet of commercial space that will not be occupied by the grocery. We also held constant a modest value for the 1,300 square feet of portico retail space. On the expense side, our assumptions of annual costs to the city for the reserve at Tinner Hill are mainly generated by the fiscal impact model itself, but they include an assumption for additional public school students that staff makes an estimate of for this project. And that is predicted to be 26 pupils residing in the building. The number is based on ratios of pupils currently residing in built and occupied mixed-use development projects in the city, and those ratios were applied proportionately to the number and type of residential units proposed at this project by bedroom count. Now, getting to the best and worst case scenarios for the net fiscal impact, we've looked at 3 scenarios for use of the remaining non-grocery, non-portico commercial space. For the best case outcome, we used information from the developer that indicated the potential for using all of the remaining space for restaurants. If all remaining 19,000 square feet of commercial space is used for restaurants, the project can expect to generate about $1.2 million per year in net fiscal impact for the city. Now, that outcome includes $422,000 in meals tax revenue alone. The developer also provided the city with what they believe would be the worst-case scenario from their perspective of filling the remaining 19,000 square feet with the highest and best uses. This scenario involves 8,700 square feet of restaurant use and 10,400 square feet of office uses. The net annual fiscal impact of this mix of uses is about $875,000 a year. Now, as another point of reference, staff created its own worst-case scenario for a lower end of the project's range of fiscal impacts. We assume that all rentable, non-grocery, non-portico retail space on the ground level of the building would be office, with no restaurants and no retail. Our fiscal impact model values office space least among the possible B1 zoning district uses for real estate assessment purposes. The low point in the range that this mix of uses generates is about $604,000 a year in net annual revenue to the city. So to summarize, the reserve at Tinner Hill can be expected to generate between $604,000 and $1.2 million per year in net annual revenue, depending on the final mix of commercial uses in the building, with all other factors held constant. On a gross revenue basis, the project can be expected to generate between about $1.4 million and $2 million per year for the city. In addition, the reserve at Tinner Hill would generate one-time only license and permit fee revenue of about $540,000. Finally, to give you an idea of what the current uses of the Saab and Meineke sites produce today in revenue, the city receives about $79,000 in gross revenue from both sites from all tax revenue. That completes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have about the fiscal impact of the project.
Council members, any questions regarding the fiscal impact? Ms. Berry?
You had mentioned the 26 students and the per dollar cost that's being calculated per student. I just wanted to make sure that those costs were consistent throughout all the new development that's being currently considered by council. Sometimes those numbers move, and I just want to make sure that we're all seeing the same dollar amounts per student.
You mean between projects?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
What we do is take a look at the mix of units, residential units in each project. Let's say that this one has 70% studios and 1 bedrooms, 30% 2 bedrooms, and another project has a different mix. What we do is look at the current population of pupils in the city in mixed-use development projects that have been built and are occupied, and we look at the ratios of pupils in 1-bedroom units and in 2-bedroom units, and we apply those ratios to the mix in these projects. So that's how we came up with 26 for this project.
I'm sorry, I didn't make myself clear. I just need to know that I've seen the dollar amount per student move differently, and I just wanted to make sure that whatever that dollar amount per student is, and I'm certain you know what it is consistent when those numbers are presented to council for all projects. I just don't want to see one set of numbers for
Right.
one project.
It's embedded in our fiscal impact model at one number, and so we apply that consistently from project to project.
Other council members? Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to return to that point you were making there about how we calculate the impact of the schools. It's based on actual experience of similar buildings around town over the last now 10 or so years. This is not some kind of guesswork. We can actually know with fair precision how many kids are going to be produced out of these buildings, Broadway, Byron, Pearson Square, et cetera, and we're applying that information to this building. Is that accurate?
That's correct. We have about more than 500 residential units in those mixed-use projects from which we draw our information.
And our experience with those buildings in total has been that they are all net revenue positive, some more strongly than others, but all are net revenue positive. In other words, this is why we do this, because these things make money. They do not generate costs in excess of their nature. Is that
correct? The last comprehensive report that we did was in June of 2012, and it indicated that all 5 built and occupied mixed-use projects are producing positive net revenue to the city.
Thank you, that's very helpful. Just one last question. Under the developer's model, estimating roughly 1.2 million, what does that translate to on the tax rate? If this building were built, it would generate X number of cents on the tax rate.
If we assume $300,000 per cent, 4 cents.
Thank you.
Other council members? Vice Mayor Snyder and then Mr. Turner.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. If none of the commercial space was rented and you just did the grocery store, what would be the net fiscal projection?
We ran that scenario today, $544,000 in net revenue. What that does is take out any sales, meals, or business taxes.
Okay. Second question I had for you was, in your projection of school costs, did you use apartments to calculate the pupil costs, or did you mix condos and apartments in calculating your pupil costs?
We've used condos and apartments in the mix of the 500-plus units that we've used as our base for pupils per unit.
Okay, so I guess the question I have, one of several, so that the public gets the full scope of information, is that our experience is very different between condos and apartments. In fact, the building right across the street yielded far more students than was projected because it was changed from condo to apartment. And I voted against that, by the way. So I think it's very important that we get this, and for reasons which I'll discuss more fully later, that we get a true comparison number. We're not talking about a mixture of condos and apartments in this development. We're talking about apartments only. So I will be interested in the pupil count we get based upon the size of the apartments for apartments only. That would be point number one. Point number two, the range here is very significant, from a pretty good return to a return which is not good. And likewise, the history of mixed use has been everything from more than $300,000 per acre to as little as $50,000 per acre. So there's a significant difference in experience with different mixed-use projects in the past, and a significant range here of this one. And I think this is all data which I'll talk about much more later. But I think that those were my questions regarding the data right now. Thank you.
Mr. Tarter?
Point of clarification or question for you. I noticed your third scenario had a significant office square footage or component. This SE doesn't stipulate that the ground floor would be all retail?
It stipulates B1 uses. The developer has offered to populate the commercial space with B1 uses, even though it's a B3 district. In other words, yes, office would be included among B1 uses that are allowed.
Mr. Pepe, anything? Okay. I had a couple clarification points as well. I think we're, and I'm going to try to stay away from commentary, but more of the factual issues right now. We're going to be taking a look at the CIP soon, specifically dealing with some of the school needs and the capital costs. I just want to make sure, one of the things that I've now heard very clearly from the school board is that the schools are reaching a tipping point, that there's just no space, that capital improvement projects are on their way, possibly in all of our city schools. I think that's something that we're all aware of. So I just want to make sure that the model that we're using captures the reality of what we're facing on the school capital costs, and has it built in as we're talking about the proffers made to offset the costs there. So that's point one. And point two, obviously the school board is still working on their budget. We're not sure where they're going to end up, but certainly one of the targets that they have is per pupil spending, and the numbers that they're envisioning don't match the model, I believe. I think that there is a gap between what we're using in the model right now and where the schools or the school board hopes to be or anticipates being. So I think that needs to be looked at again, and that's going to drive the numbers. I think we just need to be very, very careful on how we're analyzing the economic impacts of this project, and we can get to that shortly, but making sure that and I know that we're doing a lot of work refining the model, but there's still pieces of it, one dealing with the school capacity issues, that it's not just simply adding a seat on an existing classroom. We're beyond that discussion at this point. And then two, where we see the school board and superintendent going on their metrics of per pupil spending, not necessarily lining up with where the model is right now. So those are the two questions / comments that I have. So I think we're on to Mr. Cameron.
I think we've had this type of discussion before, but if you're going to do that, I mean, my impression was that the change in demographics by households who have no children moving out and people with a number of children moving in or expanding the house and so forth is a larger driver to the tipping point, which I think the mayor is correct. But my understanding is that the apartments or condos per se, compared to the number of students generated by infill, which we have no control over at all, is really what's driving the primary increase in the school enrollment. It's good to know the point that's raised, but I think it's useful also to see the relative impact. The other issue is that the capital program is so large, it's really difficult to say where the tipping point is, but we're looking at significant increases in capital costs, irrespective of this apartment building. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Snyder.
Let me just follow up on that, because I think it's a useful discussion. I think if you total up the number of additional school children as a result of mixed use, it's about 6 classes in the schools. And while we can't control turnover of single-family homes, we can control the amount of residential units we put in mixed use. That is controllable. Thank you.
Members? Okay, I believe we are now ready for the developer's presentation, or maybe not.
Sorry, just before we, just as a point of order before we pass the presentation over to the developer. Based on the staff review and its recommendation on the cover of the staff report, there is a proposed motion with such boards and commissions that are official through the city and that are typically involved in development review, and obviously it is within your authority to amend that list as necessary. I will be here to answer questions, but also to listen to your comments so that as staff continues to review the application, work with the applicant, and conduct our analysis, we're giving you the information that you need for decision making. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And council members, I've asked the developer to, I know we've seen this project before, so I've asked, and I'm going to hold Mr. Lasso to this, to 20 minutes, because I anticipate that there's going to be some council discussion, and certainly I want to make sure that we've got time for public comment. So again, I'm just going to remind the applicant that you have 20 minutes for your presentation.
Okay. Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council, my name is David Lasso. I'm with the Venable Law Firm, and I'm representing the Lincoln Property Company, which is very pleased to be before you this evening for first reading on the special exceptions for residential use in a commercial district, for a bonus height of an additional 30 feet, and for a requested change in the comprehensive plan for the city from general business to a mixed-use designation. The entire team is here this evening, with the exception, unfortunately, of Mr. Richard Rose, who was the principal with the Lincoln property. He had a long-standing vacation with his family scheduled when this date was selected, so his apologies for not being able to be here this evening. We'll soldier on with the development description and try to give you an overview and the public an overview of how far we've come in, frankly, over a year's period from when this project was first proposed. This is, just to give you an idea, this is the corner where the gateway for the Tinner Hill Memorial is located. Tinner Hill to the right, South Washington Street on the left. This is an aerial photograph to help you get oriented. The large H-shaped building to the left of that square is Pearson Square Apartments, and the area to the right is the subject site. All automotive uses, the Meineke Muffler repair store that you're familiar with, but it also has a used car lot on the site, and the former Saab dealership, which is still in operation on the site. This gives you an idea of the proximity and the number of households and other uses that are in the area. Almost 7,000 people within a half-mile area, and it's one of the reasons why this site's very attractive for the Lincoln Property Company. This is your current gateway into the city of Falls Church. It is an underutilized site, to say the least, and things have changed. The predicate for that change really was Pearson Square, tax analyst, and then later some of the smaller scale retail development that occurred in the area just to the north of this. But this, again, is your gateway, characterized by automotive uses, frankly, contaminated soil, asphalt where the water that hits it immediately sheets off and goes into Trips Run, overhead utility lines, and all those sorts of things associated with it. I'd like to introduce Stephanie Pankowitz. She's with Land Design. This is the new gateway. This is the park at Trips Run, and she'll take you through it and walk you around the perimeter of the site.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Pankowitz, and I am a landscape architect with Land Design, and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all and share the vision that we have for what we are also calling the Gateway Park at the reserve at Tenor Hill. It is really an incredible asset. It'll be the first park built in the city in a very long time. It'll be privately developed, but publicly accessible and open to the public, and will do a tremendous amount to improve the water quality over what is there currently with the existing asphalt. What we have proposed in the floodway is a beautiful events plaza that can be used for festivals and farmers markets and art fairs. It will have enhanced paving and opportunities for elements such as splash pads. Because of the nature of it being in a floodway, we can't have vertical elements that would impact floodwaters, but that creates just an incredible opportunity for us with this events plaza. It's a significant investment by the developer and very pedestrian oriented on Maple, Washington, and through the park. I would also like to just talk about how well it is located within the city of Falls Church. It is directly across the street from the Tenor Hill Park. And one of the things that we have done over the past year is we've met several times with local community organizations such as the Tenor Hill Foundation, with the Catch, and other arts organizations such as Creative Cauldron to talk about what it means that this project is located in the Arts District. And so the developer has made a commitment that we believe is pretty exciting to preserve the Tenor Hill Monument at the corner, as you saw in the rendering. And it is greatly connected to all the existing city cultural assets and parks and open space, as well as the Heritage Trail. And so what I'd like to do is just briefly take you on just a short walk around the project, just to show you how all this can potentially be integrated into the streetscape. At the Tenor, starting at the Tenor Hill Monument at the corner of Tenor Hill and South Washington Street, the developer has proposed pedestrian improvements such as the crosswalk that would improve pedestrian safety and access to the future Tenor Hill Park. The monument would be preserved in place at that corner, and we also are proposing that the entire streetscape of South Washington Street be incorporated as part of an urban trail and part of the Heritage Trail. And this would be achieved through art and monument and signage that would be incorporated into the streetscape. And it might be a little difficult to see here, but the pavers, the enhanced paving on South Washington, we would like them to pick up the tones of the pink granite, and if possible, incorporate pink granite into the streetscape. As you continue along Tenor Hill Street, we have the corner there where there's enhanced paving as well and wide sidewalks for outdoor dining at the grocery store. We are proposing that along all of the garage and loading dock entrances that the pedestrian be given the priority by enhancing the paving so that it's really clear to vehicles entering that that's the pedestrian zone. And then as you turn the corner along South Maple, we are proposing that that streetscape really be incorporated and kind of mix and match with the Pearson Square, so it'll have a similar brick pattern. We'll have additional streetscapes and amenity areas such as benches and lighting, public art, and enhanced paving, as well as what we are calling these portico retail areas. And one of the other team members will speak more specifically about those, but I'll just speak to the impact that those will have on the streetscape is that they will create multiple doorways where pedestrians are entering and exiting and shopping and dining on South Maple Street. And we feel that that will really do a great deal to enhance the liveliness and animation of the overall streetscape zone. We really strongly believe that the entire streetscape and the park will promote local history, the heritage, and the art. It will support the emerging arts district and will really be part of what will make this district shine as the arts district. And now I'll turn it over to the architect to speak a little bit about the architecture elements.
Hi, my name is Mark Drake. I'm with KTGY. I'm the architect on the project. I'll try to be quick and talk a little bit about the architecture that we formed the building with. Let me see. Talk about the plan for a minute. One of the items that were driving our design was the need to get a grocery store, parking for the grocery store, retail, commercial office space, or retail residential lobby, loading for the residential retail down in here, loading for the grocery store, parking garage entries down on this level for the parking garage. There's about a 15-foot drop between this point, and that basically this building, this is one level, and there's a 12-foot step here, and this is a lower level. So this building is stepping down the hill, and as Wyatt said, there is no back door in this building, so we are trying to maximize, getting frontage on all these sides of the building. We have the portico retail, we have the leasing office, we have this, the commercial office space or retail space here, retail space here. This is the grocery store up in here. This is their cafe, their main entry, and views into their space. So, this is the design responds to. See if I can get this to work. Just push it there. Okay. So the plan responds to the program. And these are elevations of the building here. You can see the Tenor Hill elevation. Here's the grocery store entry, storefront along the grocery store, their loading dock. We have 5 stories of housing above. We have tower elements on the corners to create interesting architecture. This is part of the gateway design of this project. We're trying to make these, or every corner of the building, somewhat of a gateway element. Here you see the portico retail along Maple Avenue. You see the entry right in here. This is kind of the entry off of Maple Avenue into the grocery store area. This is loading areas for the loading docks and garage entries for the building. This is the leasing office for the residential, their entry, and this is the commercial or retail lease space down here. You can see we've used a lot of variety in the architecture of the building. This is brick elements, stone down in here, brick up in here, in this area here, some cementitious or metal paneling up in these areas, metal paneling up in this area. This is the end of the building. This is all ghosted off because it's kind of going back up South Washington Street. Here's the end of the building facing the park. These are large storefront areas with mezzanines behind for 2-story spaces looking into the park. Again, the residential area above with tower elements. Stepping down the site, here's the grocery store entry. Here's this area right in here would be for grocery store, outdoor seating and display and vegetables and fruits on display. Stepping down the hill here, views into the grocery store, the loading dock entry. This is all the retail space down here with outdoor dining, and then we turn the corner down here to the park. Again, these are the courtyards back in here. One of the things that's very important to us is to have these courtyards facing south so we can get maximum sunlight into these courtyards. There's a pool in this courtyard. This is kind of a meditation courtyard. And you can see they're very large courtyards. They're almost 80 or 90 feet across and about 100 feet deep. So there's a lot of sunlight getting into these courtyards with the southern exposure. This building's basically an E-shaped building in the residential building above. Here's a massing model you can kind of see. Here's the park. Here's looking up Maple Avenue. You can see some of the portico retail. You can see the massing of the building above, the 5-story housing. You can see the step in the building right here because we're stepping this building down the site because of the grades we're having. This is looking at the entry to the grocery store here with the Tinner Hill Monument. You can see the courtyards are open to the south. You can see the landscaping, the buffer here on South Washington, Tinner Hill here. And again, you can see the massing of the building above the retail levels. This is a section. This is a very important section. What this tells you, this is the ground floor of the grocery store, which is at grade level here, and this is about half of their parking. The other half of their parking is here, and all this parking down below is for the retail and the residents. This is the garage entry. This is the entry to the parking levels because it's at grade right here. It can't go up the hill. It can't go up the hill. It can't go down the hill. It needs to be right here. If you can kind of see this dotted line, this is the grade that comes from about 299 to about 284, right around here. So it's about 14 foot of drop here. And what's happening is our ground floor is here, and it drops down here. And again, we're trying to get this part of the ground floor equal with grade here so people can get in the building. Then we have a step here, and we're going up. And you can see the same thing happening here with the building above. We're stepping here. This is 5 stories of housing here, 4 here, 5 here, 5 here. So we're having to step our building down the site. It's a very important thing to note about this building because we're working with a sloped site. And I will turn this over to Jack Waghorn with NV Realty to talk about the retail plan.
Thank you. My name is Jack Waghorn. I'm the president of NV Retail. I have the pleasure to be the retail partner in this project with Lincoln Property Company. We have gone to great lengths to try and secure the best possible tenant for the city. As part of our efforts, Richard came to us and said, you've got one goal, and that is to get us a grocery store. And we said, well, how about the very best grocery store for the project? So we're pleased to announce the location of the grocery store, as we pointed out already, is on what we call the hard corner of Tinner Hill and South Washington, and it is basically the anchor for the remaining retail that we have in the project. The brown spaces that you see down the hill that's the parking area, thank you, but there you go. We anticipate those as being restaurant locations, and again, our goal is to bring you restaurants that are not currently in the City of Falls Church, would be unique and would complement the tremendous development that we've got above. The area in blue at the end of the building has been looked at one point as being commercial space, commercial office space. We've looked at it as possible retail space, and at this point in time, we are working on both levels, trying to find commercially reasonable rents that we can charge for someone moving in there as an office tenant, or different uses as retail, as well as restaurant uses in that space. All the tenants, I think, would love to be at the end of that building because it is the gateway to the city. We'll have tremendous exposure, and will anchor that end of the building compared to the grocery store at the other end. I hope I'm pressing this the right way. This is the rear showing the portico spaces along Maple Avenue. One of our goals is to bring the city new retail that you don't have right now. The portico retail space is a shallow retail space that we can rent at a a little bit less rental for startup and mom and pop businesses. These are specifically going to be used by, like I said, mom and pops who want to generate business from the local population. They'd be walk-up type spaces, and they'd be featured anything from florist shops to coffee shops and those kind of uses, daily needs kind of thing. I'm very pleased to present you tonight a signed letter of intent from the Fresh Market. We have, over the past year, negotiated with them to take this space, and for those of you who haven't seen this store, they have not been successful in locating in Falls Church as of yet. They would love to be here. Their current store in operation that's closest to you is in Vienna, Virginia, and I would anticipate that you'd all want to go and have a look at it. If you don't shop there now, I think you'll be hooked once you walk in the store, because the store looks like this. It's a beautiful, well-maintained location, has about 45 employees on a 7-day-a-week basis. They feature the best of everything, a lot of prepared foods. They're great for apartment buildings because people can come in, grab a quick prepared meal and go upstairs and microwave it or cook it in your oven above and take full credit for it. They do have beer and wine as part of their store, and once you see the store in Vienna, you'll see it is truly a jewel, and I think it would be a tremendous asset to the city of Falls Church. David?
This is a statement of the community benefits for the project that also corresponds to the voluntary terms and concessions. The terms and concessions will include $1.6 million contribution to the school's capital costs. We estimate right now the undergrounding of utilities is going to cost about $1.1 million. The value of 14 affordable dwelling units is about $3.3 million. The Gateway Park, which is again land in a floodway that we are going to go ahead and purchase and incorporate, is going to cost about $2 million. The traffic signal, which will allow for the first time really ever to get across the street without risking life and limb, is $250,000. We roughly $100,000 toward the Tinner Hill Heritage Celebration, not including all of the activities in working with that group to make this a success. The net fiscal impact, you heard some earlier estimates. That's just an estimate put in there, if you will, as a bit of a placeholder. There is a community, a commitment to the grocery store. This building won't go forward unless the grocery store gets built. The total of the commercial space is about 45,000 square feet. Please note that there's an awful lot of cleanup that has to be done here. That's part of the cost. LEED Silver, stormwater management, best management practices will be followed. Electric car charging stations, we're going to have bicycle storage, and then all of the streetscape improvements that go with it. Those will all be incorporated into the terms and conditions. Just to conclude, that's the existing South Maple Avenue view that the folks at Pearson Square face, and if you wondered why that retail space was a little difficult to lease, of course the recession had a lot to do with it, but that was the environment that retailers would have been facing during that period of time. And to the right is the environment that they'd be facing once this project goes forward. So we're very excited about the project, and we'd be happy to answer any questions, and after the public speaks, provide you with any additional information. We're very hopeful that you will give this the go-ahead so we can proceed to the public process. We will work with you, we'll work with the community. There's an awful lot of fine-tuning to be done on really all aspects of the project, but we think we've got a great start, and we're really itching to get into the public sector and make this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, council members, questions, and then we'll move on from there. Mr. Duncan?
Just one question about process. So there's first reading and there's referral. This one is just a referral? This is not a first reading?
It is.
It is.
For our purposes, it's,
So the motion that's proposed as a move to refer is the same as a first reading?
essentially, yes.
Okay, thanks.
A little bit different in the sense that we're not required to do a first reading, but the way that we've done these types of resolutions is that we do refer them out. So while technically not a first reading, we treat it as such.
And one other important technical point to it is that with an ordinance, the council is well familiar with the rule that you can't make substantive changes between first reading and second reading, and that's not the case here. The request is referred to the boards and commissions so that you can get the benefit of all that input and make changes.
And I'll say, council members, if we need to have an additional, if there's changes that are made and we need to get more public input, we can always do that. We can always add hearings with something like this.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Council members, any comments, questions at this point?
Comments?
Well, let's do questions first. Are there any questions? Nothing? Okay. Why don't we go ahead and, let's entertain a motion, and then we'll go ahead and open it up for the public.
Both motions?
Yes, if we can move on both.
Mr. Mayor, I move to refer TR 13-06 and TR 13-07 to the Planning Commission, Architectural Advisory Board, Economic Development Authority, Housing Commission, Environmental Services Commission, Tree Commission, Citizens Advisory Committee on Transportation, Historical Commission, Humanities Council, Catch, and Recreation and Parks Advisory Board, to schedule a public hearing and council action for May 13, 2013, and to advertise the same according to law.
Thank you. If I can get a second?
Second.
Mr. Kalin on the second. I'd like to open this item up for public comment. I have several speaker slips. I just ask that each speaker slip, or each speaker state their name and their address, and you have 3 minutes. The first speaker slip that I have is Mr. Bill Baskin, to be followed by Peter Jabla.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. My name is Bill Baskin, attorney at 301 Park Avenue, Falls Church, Virginia. I'm here on behalf of the owners of the Pearson Square building across the street. I believe you have a memo from Mr. Bob Raffato addressing some of his concerns on behalf of Pearson Square. I believe that's in your packet. I want to say that some of those concerns have already been alleviated by changes that have been made to the project, and I want to start by saying that my client supports the redevelopment of this site with a mixed-use project such as this. We believe that it would benefit not only the city at large, but the South Washington Street corridor and the adjacent property owners in that vicinity. And so we believe that from what we've seen, this looks like a very viable project, although there are a few concerns that still remain, and we look forward to addressing those with the applicant and with the city as the project goes forward. Just to touch on those, the primary concern really is that the project, if built as proposed, would result in a substantial loss of sunlight on not only the building at Pearson Square, but Maple Avenue, the street itself. And we're not opposed to the special exception for additional height per se, but we would like to see the orientation of the building or some efforts taken to mitigate the full additional height butted right up against the full frontage along Maple Avenue. I think with just about every other mixed-use project, if not every other mixed-use project that the city has approved, great care has been taken to minimize the impact of the size and the height and the massing of a mixed-use building on adjacent residential properties. And what you have here is an adjacent residential property, largely residential. It's mixed use, but it's probably about 80% residential. And the folks who live in Pearson Square certainly have the same feelings about looking out their window as the folks who live in single-family residences. And the sunlight that falls on through their windows and so forth. So we would like to have that issue studied as this project goes forward. We feel that one way to address that or remedy it would be to flip the building and have, it's an E-shaped building, as was mentioned by the architect, I believe, and the E currently faces Washington Street. If that were flipped so that the E faced Maple and the courtyards faced Maple, that would do tremendous benefit in terms of letting more sunlight not only onto the Pearson Square building, but onto the Maple Avenue Street as well. Other concerns are the loading dock, which has been addressed, I think, largely, and that will require the loading for both the grocery store and for the residential units to occur inside the building so that there won't be trucks parked on the street. We appreciate that and support that. I think there are perhaps a few other minor issues that can be discussed as this goes forward, but by and large, we're in favor of it.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip that I have is Mr. Peter Chabla, followed by Tina Dove.
Mayor Baroukh, Vice Mayor Snyder, and members of the City Council, I'm Peter Jabla, the President and the CEO of the Levine School of Music. I'm here because I would like Levine to establish residence in Falls Church City by becoming part of the community benefits package proposed for the reserve at Tinner Hill. As one of the leading nonprofit community music schools in this country, we firmly believe that there is much we can bring to the project and to this city. One of our 4 campuses in this region is just 2.5 miles east of here in Arlington, and we're excited about the possibility of moving that campus here to Falls Church and bringing music education, performances, master classes, recitals, competitions, and music therapy to the city, not only for the sake of Levine's parents and students, but for the entire community. Plus, music and the Levine School make for good business. A study performed by the Americans in the Arts coming out of the recession showed that local audiences spent more than $17 per person per event in addition to the cost of admission. With a full roster of performances and events, coupled with our weekly audiences for music lessons and classes, Levine can only be an asset for the developer and for the city. But don't forget that music and the arts have another impact, and that is just as important as dollars and cents. They make a fundamental contribution to the mix. They enrich the life of a city and the life in a city. Music should not just be limited to special occasions and street festivals. It should be intrinsic to Falls Church City every day. I know that you've been envisioning a vital and active downtown for your residents, office workers, and visitors, and you've talked about the city having a heart and a soul. Without playing that tune in the background, that's exactly what music and music education can bring to Falls Church. Consider how music can feed the hearts and souls of your residents and provide a place for children and adults alike to experience together the joy of music. Levine's a remarkable place. We provide opportunities for everyone. Our youngest student is 4 months old. Our oldest is 98 years young. There are those who just want some exposure to music, or some, like many of our adult students, who simply want to revive the joy of earlier years through their love of music. We serve all skill levels, from beginners to the conservatory bound, and we serve all income levels through a robust and far-reaching scholarship program. Over 3,000 students come to Levine weekly, some 500 at our Arlington campus, and hundreds more come through our doors each week to bring their children, attend a performance, or enjoy a master class or a recital. Wherever we have been in residence for the past 38 years, we have built a broad community of music. Now, with your leadership, we would like to do so here in Falls Church. I encourage you and Lincoln Properties to incorporate music and music education into your plans and to finally make Levine part of this special city. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker slip.
Mr. Mayor, I had a question for the gentleman who just spoke. I'm trying to understand what you're proposing here. Are you proposing that you want to be a tenant and pay commercially reasonable rates for your space, or are you proposing some sort of subsidy?
We're proposing two things, Vice Mayor. One is for operating costs, we will need a subsidy to pay. We cannot pay commercial rental rates. But we are willing to handle the entire build-out of our space because that's capital money we feel we can raise as compared to operating money, which is more significant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So what kind of subsidy are you looking for a year approximately?
Not knowing specifically how this would work with the folks at Tinner Hill, but it's approximately, from what I've seen, about $100,000 a year for a 10-year period.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Gallant.
Just to let the public know that a meeting with Levine School has been scheduled for EDC this Friday. So these are good questions that have been raised by Mr. Snyder, Mr. Tarter, and we can discuss them at greater length at that EDC meeting as well. Thank you.
Right, and we'll be prepared to go through that as well.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker slip I have is Tina Dove, followed by Larry Huff, I believe.
Good evening, Mayor Baroukh, Vice Mayor Snyder, and members of the City Council. I'm Tina Dove, Director of Levine School of Music's Virginia campus. Peter Jablow has just told you about Levine's mission and size and the breadth of our instruction and programs, and he's urged you to enrich Falls Church with more music and help see that Levine is included in the Reserve at Tinner Hill project. I second Peter's request that you do your best to support Levine, a nonprofit community music school, being included as part of the community benefits package. Levine has been hoping to establish a new campus in Falls Church for several years. The reasons start with the fact that your city is just 2.5 miles from our current location. This is very important to those who study with us. As Peter indicated, we have more than 500 students who come through our doors each week. I can be pretty sure that the 80 students who live in Greater Falls Church, including 25 families within the 22046 zip code, would especially love to have the school located at the Reserve at Tinner Hill. However, I'm also thinking about our other students. I'm sure you can understand that I wouldn't like to lose 90% of our Virginia students by having our new home be too remote or in the wrong place. But in this fine new facility so nearby, potentially this is excellent. I could list the instruments that Levine offers, detail the credentials of our outstanding teaching artist faculty, describe our wildly popular summer camp, or tell you some stories about breakthroughs achieved in our music therapy program, or I could chronicle the 53 events that are the core of the Levine Presents program in the 2012-2013 year. But instead, I'd like to tell you about who's enrolled at Levine, Virginia, and give you some numbers. 2/3 of our students come for private music lessons. Levine is a destination for them week in and week out. Last year, 12,799 private lessons were taught at the Virginia campus, the least expensive of which cost $49.50. Quite a few students took lessons that cost $98 apiece. Quick math, that's over $3,500 of discretionary income spent for piano lessons. Levine has pretty high expectations concerning attendance, as you would think. Solid attendance does improve a student's performance and progress. We expect our students to come, and they do quite regularly, week in and week out. You're looking for a business to bring people and their wallets into your community, not just occasionally, but consistently and assuredly, yes? Well, Levine School of Music can fill this bill. Levine is a destination for young, old, serious, and talented students, and not so talented, but universally for people who want to learn and participate in a musical community in your arts district. I would like the city and the Reserve at Tinner Hill to be our destination and a destination as well. We can help you. Falls Church would be an ideal location for Levine's Virginia campus, and Levine School of Music would be just a remarkable asset for Falls Church. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is Mr. Larry Huff, followed by Nikki Graves Henderson.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of Levine. My name is Larry Huff. I'm a business owner in Falls Church, Virginia. I also own the building my company occupies across from Kaiser Permanente on North Washington Street. We've called Falls Church our business home for the last 5 or 6 years. Prior to that, we have been in other locations in the greater Washington area. I have 4 employees. All of us come from outside the city. And yet, we very much enjoy doing work in the city because of the community your leadership has helped foster and grow over the last decades. I also happen to be, having been mentioned by indirect reference, one of those less than stellar piano students at the Levine School. I returned to music after a 50-year hiatus 3 years ago and take piano lessons at the Arlington campus. Another incidental thought I have is that our building has been home to 2 business startups that we have had brought to us through work with the Economic Development Group in the city. We know firsthand the efforts made on behalf of business, and again, we are very enthusiastic about supporting activities in Falls Church. In addition to being a student, I'm a member of the board of directors. And as the CEO of Sallie Mae a decade and a half ago, a company made the largest contribution in its 20-year history up to that time with a grant to create the DC location for the Levine School back in the mid-90s. My passion for what this school does is because it is a community school. Peter outlined the curriculum. It starts at 4 months and it goes up to senior choruses who are very active in the community of Arlington, and I'm sure involve your own residents in that capacity as well. Levine will be an anchor tenant of its own weight in this development if you go forward with what we would like to see happen. We will enrich the arts in this community. Every experience in my own background suggests that where a tenant of our quality arrives, things get better. I was chairman of the Shakespeare Theater when we entered negotiations with the Landsberg, and in that pro offer were successful in moving the theater from Capitol Hill to the area where most of you know. Subsequently, the MCI Center developed, and there's other theaters in that space. We will attract and strengthen the arts in the community. Of that, there's no doubt in my mind. And this is a 5-star institution. Yes, there are other community activities in music, but there are no other community music schools of the quality of the Levine School in this region. So there you have it. You have an opportunity to move the ball in a very significant way for your community residents and for the region. People do come to designated areas like this school. They will come, they will enjoy the shops and the restaurants, and they will become part of your economy. But it does take an initiative on your part. You can do for this music school what Arlington did for Signature Theater, what Bethesda did for Roundhouse Theater, what Strathmore, or I should say Rockville did for the Strathmore. Developers are flexible people. They can move in the direction if this makes sense to you, and we hope it does. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is from Miss Nikki Graves Henderson, followed by Ed Novak.
Good evening. I'm Nikki Graves Henderson. I live at 307 South Maple Street. I'm the executive director for Tenor Hill Heritage Foundation, and I come before you tonight to express my support for the Lincoln property development. But before I say that, I'd like to say that Tenor Hill was part of the James Lee Community Legacy Black History Program, and our vice mayor was part of that production. Over 200 people saw and heard and experienced the history of Falls Church that I hope all of you know, and they were quite amazed. Part of what we are doing here is talking about a connection to that community history, a sense of place. Since 1871, we've had an extraordinary history here in Falls Church that many of us know and some of us do not know. I think that the Lincoln property project has been very receptive to that. Since the very beginning, we've had conversations with the developer about Tenor Hill, the history of Tenor Hill, conversations about even the title of the project, crossing and linking the historical site, the Tenor Hill historical site, with the project across the street, considering the neighborhood. Our home, the Henderson House, is the only single-family home on South Maple Street. And right now, it's up for review for the National Historic Registry by the National Parks. And we're hoping that that connection with the history between one of the challenges that we've had from early on was connecting Tenor Hill, the historic site, the Henderson House, and the monument. One could lose their life, and several people have, crossing at Elevation Burger to Tenor Hill. So the idea of a stoplight is not only pleasant, it's necessary. We've received news recently that the state budget amendment that would give Tenor Hill $20,000 to help in developing the historic site is very timely, and we're very excited about that, as well as what we have going with Lincoln Property. The developer has been very responsive with our concerns, with the things that we thought would work and not work. We're very pleased to think about the pink granite being used in their building and becoming a metaphor for that area. Lastly, I'd like to say that what we have now is deplorable. Within 5 blocks, we have 4 car title loan businesses that, in my opinion, are predatory. They prey on immigrant workers, and people who are earning minimum wage. We have car repair shops, we have car sales, and replacing it with something like the reserve at Tenor Hill is only going up. So that's my opinion, and I'd like to share that with the members of council, the vice mayor, and the mayor, and the city manager.
Thank you very much, Nikki. The next speaker slip that I have is Ed Novak, followed by Mario Gambio.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. My name is Ed Novak. I'm from Chevy Chase, Maryland. I'm actually wearing 3 hats tonight, but I won't take 3 minutes. My first hat is developer in the city. I'm president of Nova Habitat Incorporated. We developed the Broadway and the Byron. And I have to say, and I really would like to compliment Lincoln Property on what I think is a exceptionally attractive project. I'm very impressed with, and I congratulate their team on it, I'm very impressed with the architectural design of the project, and I'm impressed, frankly, with their commitment to meet all the various requests of the city with respect to commercial space. 40-some thousand square feet of commercial space is a significant commitment, and frankly, one that I didn't think would be financially feasible on a project in this location. So I commend them on that. I also wear the hat of being a member of the Legislative Committee of the Chamber of Commerce. I don't want to speak for that committee because we haven't taken a formal position yet, but I certainly am, again, very favorably impressed with the quality of the project as well as the commitment to the commercial space. Lastly, I am a member and owner of one of 47 members and owners of Mad Fox Brewing Company. I also serve on the board of directors of Mad Fox. We just had a meeting, our board meeting last week, our quarterly board meeting, and at that meeting, one of the subjects was, what can we do to generate more top-line sales in the city? We've become a bit of a destination to the city, but we certainly could use, frankly, more bodies in the restaurant at all times. Mad Fox Brewing Company, between property taxes, sales, and meals tax, pays $200,000 a year to the city. we'd like to make that 300,000. And I think Mr. Shields made a comment that he'd like to, that one of the objectives for development of this type is to be a catalyst for new development. I would respectfully suggest that bringing more younger professionals into the community to live in Falls Church is showing support for the existing retail establishments and restaurants in the city. And I think it is very much needed. So with that, I would like to offer my strong support for this project to go forward. My biggest fear, frankly, is that now that the exhibit is off, is that we don't see. I'm sure that the boards and commissions will give this a prudent review. I hope that in being prudent in reviewing it, it is not encumbered with conditions that make it financially infeasible to develop. I think it goes without saying that none of us would like to see the picture on the left be there for years to come. Thanks.
Thank you. The next speaker slip that I have is Mario Gambio, followed by Marty Meserve.
Good evening. My name is Mario Gamboa. I'm a resident of Arlington County, but my wife and I, Jennifer, own and run Body Dynamics, which is a physical therapy and wellness center located at 410 South Maple Avenue in Falls Church and as a commercial tenant in the Pearson Square building. Thanks to the support of the City of Falls Church, the council, and the community, we successfully moved and opened our facility in September of last year. We are also very excited to be located in a part of the city that is slated for a makeover that provides an opportunity to create a real draw to the Tinner Hill and South Maple Avenue area, and we support the development of the reserve at Tinner Hill. Many of our initial concerns with respect to the streetscape on South Maple were presented by Bob Rufato in his memo in January, but given the presentation tonight, many of those concerns have been addressed. So as we move forward, we are excited to participate in this process, and again, we support the development of the reserve at Tinner Hill.
Thank you very much. The next speaker slip I have is Ms. Marty Meserve, followed by Gary Laporta.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Marty Meserve, and I live at 708 Berry Street. I am here on behalf of Creative Cauldron tonight. We want first to thank Richard Rose, Dave Lasso, and the team from Lincoln Properties for their excellent outreach and communication with Creative Cauldron during the development of this plan. When the city looks at new development opportunities, it should do so with a long-term vision of how the new project enhances and complements what is already there, and how the old and new work together in creating sustainable, interesting, and economically viable spaces for the city as a whole. When Pearson Square was built and Creative Cauldron agreed to move in, it was with the promise that Maple Avenue would be lined on both sides with shops and restaurants and would become its own destination hub of activity, anchored by the city's first and only live theater venue. The first iteration of the Lincoln Plan failed to provide any spaces for retail activity along Maple Avenue. Retail consultants advising against what has been a successful development strategy in neighboring communities, and contrary to our own Streetworks plan for a city center with a focus a block off Broad Street, suggested that the shops face Washington Street, leaving an uninviting, tall, blank, canyon-forming wall along Maple Avenue. But with a recent revision that includes portico or incubator retail, Maple Avenue now has a chance to get a little bit more life and hopefully attract small, local entrepreneurs. The park at the western end of the project provides opportunities to connect with Maple Avenue for street festival events or even a farmer's market. I urge you to continue to refine this concept as the plan review continues and aim for the highest revenue-producing uses for the financial security of the city. I also urge you to recognize the value to the city and the region of the resources already in place in the district. The Tinner Hill District is unique and has emerged as the core of a Falls Church art and culture district. Creative Cauldron, Falls Church Arts, and the Tinner Hill Heritage Foundation give the city an enviable inventory of attractions with live theater and music, visual arts, the Henderson House, the Tinner Hill Arch, and plans for the Tinner Hill Historic Site, which will make our civil rights history come to life. These three groups are the pioneers of the art and culture district, and you must ensure their viability and continued success by building an environment around them that helps them thrive. The city already has a large investment in art space, and we must be careful not to undo that investment. The grocery store and restaurants and small shops that are planned will bring a vibrancy to Maple Avenue and be excellent partners in the activities already there. No project is perfect, this one included. The new building looms high over Pearson Square and will block the sun from our windows in the winter, and the loading dock and parking garage entrance right across from our door isn't the best arrangement, but I am optimistic that all parties will continue to work to find the best solutions for all concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marty. The next speaker slip that I have is Gary Laporta, followed by Thomas McGillen.
Good evening, Your Honors. My name is Gary Laporta, 130 Chanel Terrace. By my estimation, some 35 professionals on staff, from arborists to transportation planners, from civil engineers to business development managers, have already reviewed this project. The city manager, the city attorney, the chief financial officer have agreed with staff that this special exception be referred to boards and commissions, which hopefully will include the Chamber of Commerce, for comment and second reading. I say, let that be done, and I'll cede the remainder of my time for those who choose to ignore it.
Thank you, Gary, and I have to comment on the shirt.
On the shirt, yeah.
Love the shirt. It says, "Go old geeks rule."
That shirt, actually.
The next speaker slip that I have is Thomas McGillen, I believe. He may have left. Are there any other, those are all the speaker slips that I have. Are there any members of the public that wish to address the council? Thank you very much. And I don't believe that we received any written comments. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close this to public comments and invite council for any questions or comments that they have. Mr. Kalin.
I'd just like to report, the EDC has been reviewing this project for the better part of my lifespan. And the issue of Maple Street has taken on theological aspects to it, but I think we're getting close to some form of ecumenical agreement here. Basically, it's been reviewed. The report that the city manager gave regarding the EDC was accurate. I mean, I don't have to repeat that. The other comments, and just to refer to the issue of students and the generation of extra school kids as a result of apartment building. Clearly, there must be a saturation point, and I think concerns raised about the number of apartment buildings overall in the city is a legitimate concern. As to tipping points, this is a much murkier topic because if infill students outnumber the ones generating apartments is 2/3 of the tipping point related to them. I mean, how do you ascribe where the tipping point is and who has caused that tipping point? What I am concerned about is we're going to get to the tipping point without development, which is a real risk. Now, we're looking at a $100 million CIP for the George Mason. It is very difficult at this stage to say that with moving both Mary Ellen Henderson and George Mason, something couldn't be done to handle and address the additional students that we clearly see coming into the city. In that regard, I don't see that aspect of the project in any way really should affect its ability to send it out to the boards and commissions for their review. And I would support moving it out to the various commissions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kalin. Other council members? Mr. Duncan?
I see Mr. Tartar and Mr. Pepe glaring at me down there. Surely he won't say more. I just have 4 quick points. Things that I would like to hear from the groups to whom we are referring this. One is the Historical Commission. I would love to know how many groceries we used to have in Falls Church. I've read some things online that suggest that people don't believe we can support more than one, and certainly not more than 2 groceries. I would just like to know, if we can go back to the future. My perception is that we used to have several groceries in and around the city, and I'm encouraged, by the way, not to bury the lead, that you have the letter of intent to build the grocery. It would suggest that this company believes that there is a market for it. So, but I would like for the Historical Commission to give us some historical perspective on that. Second, on the ADUs, the housing angle of it, something that I know the housing groups will want to discuss and discuss more fully. If there are, architectural changes to the building, tweaks, the language that we use where we say the city prefers that the unit sizes and types be proportionately the same as the entire development. It recognizes possible trade-offs with regards to amenities and placement of ADUs. Just something to put out there as a possibility, are there nooks and crannies in the project where we could include studios that might be affordable without, impacting the overall net fiscal impact of the building? Fourth, the Architectural Advisory Board, I guess, is the place that would be most likely to do a shadow study like we saw on the Harris Teeter proposal, which I thought was very helpful. So we definitely would need that and would want to see just how much of Pearson Square is shadowed in winter, and is there anything we can do about it. And finally, on the net fiscal impact question, very important points raised by the mayor and vice mayor, and it's going to be an opportunity for good community discussion of this. The chart that I found most interesting was the grid chart, and I know I've seen it somewhere on paper, but the only thing I'm looking at right now is the narrative form that Jim Snyder's letter, that Mr. Lasso's letter to Jim Snyder has, and I just think it'd be helpful to have that grid and, show it around and get people talking about what that really means. I mean, it means $1.6 million to the schools for capital costs, away and apart from anything that has to do with how the building performs once it's built, as I understand it. And where I come from, that's real money. Not to mention the $500,000 or so of permits and fees and one-time charges, that's real money too that could be put to other public service costs. So just if we could have that grid, make sure that that's included in the materials that are online and available to the public. I think that's all. Thank you very much.
Other council members? Mr. Pepe?
No glaring at this end. You know what really impressed me tonight, and I don't have a lot of comments. I'm going to support referring it out, and we'll hear what we hear back. But it's interesting to see how this project has, evolved. I mean, the changes were clearly made. But whoever either did the outreach or maybe it erupted spontaneously to surrounding businesses and businesses elsewhere in the community, it's not that often we see that kind of support coming forward where I hear businesses say, we want more people to live here of this demographic, and we want more businesses here, and we'd like to move our business here. I mean, that's the kind of conversation it's good to see and we ought to be having. So it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the boards and commissions come back with, given that input that we had here tonight.
Other council members? Vice Mayor Snyder?
You sure? Thanks a lot, Mr. Mayor. Let me trace for a few moments here the history of mixed-use development in the city. It really started with the AdCom site when, at the time, Vice Mayor Sam Mabry and I felt that we needed some additional, more dense development in our commercial areas, and that started a chain of events. Over the course of the last decade, we had some experience with mixed-use developments, and each one of them had a very similar sort of rollout, very favorable views of things, and I felt, though, that there were some long-term costs that weren't really being accounted for in the advocacy for each of these projects. And in fact, now I think we're starting to see those long-term costs come in terms of a very high demand for a 14% increase in the city, in the schools' need for operational expenditures, and confronting a major capital program of $100 million. So one of the things that I want to see with this project going forward, because we're on the brink of approving potentially over the next year 500 new apartment units, I would like to see a community discussion over the next 2 months where we lay out not only what we've heard tonight, but we figure that into the overall budget situation, specifically the school operational costs and the school capital costs. Because it's not necessarily so clear that all of these projects have been positive. They may have been positive in the short term or in the medium term, but I think we're starting to see the full costs of these projects really come to bear, and the immediate benefits are not keeping up with the long-term costs that we're confronting as a city. So I think the decision we make on this project and the other one with Harris Teeter are potentially Bet the Ranch projects, perhaps in a positive sense. Also, perhaps in a long-term sense, exactly the opposite. And so I think it's time that we have a full community discussion. And sending out to boards and commissions is a good idea, but I would ask if the makers of the motion would include at least one town hall meeting so that we invite non-boards and commission members, and that we present not only the short-term positives that we see here, but some of the long-term challenges the city is facing, so that as a community, we review this whole issue again. We did in the mid-2000s, there was a referendum, and the community at that time decided they wanted to go forward with mixed-use development. I think it's time to take a look now at this model to see if it's still something this community wants. We have the time to do it, and I think it's absolutely fundamental to do it. So that's sort of a general comment. More specifically, the concern I have is the vast range. Frankly, I'm not in the development business here from the standpoint of the city converting commercial land to largely residential, and that's what this project is, largely residential, unless it makes a major positive short-term, medium-term, and long-term financial benefit to the city. So I'm pretty concerned about this range we have, everything from 544,000 to 1.2, and I'd like to get us to the top of that range rather than the bottom. So we have at our dais here a proposal to provide additional incentives, if you will, to get to the top end of that range. And we have some experience with long-term vacancy rates in mixed-use developments that we had planned for and had included in our numbers calculations, but in fact weren't filled for many, many years after the building was built. So I want to see some clear financial incentives to making sure that we get to the top end of this projection at the 1.2 as opposed to the bottom end at the 555. So I would ask that we include the language at the dais or some similar language to assure that that occur. So that those who are advocating for this project, we actually get the project in terms of the dollars that the advocates are saying that we get. Otherwise, at $555,000, I don't think this project is worth the risk. At $1.2 million, it becomes something that's far more attractive. So in conclusion, with those amendments or additions, if you will, that is a general town hall meeting where we discuss the development model and the returns of this development model. during this review process. And then we build in some legally enforceable incentives to get to the top range of the revenue projection rather than the bottom, then I'd like to see this move forward and go to the boards and commissions. Thank you very much.
Mr. Tarter?
Yes, a few questions and a few comments. First, I think this site clearly needs to be redeveloped. It's a gateway to the city. It's an industrial use that doesn't generate much tax dollars for the city, nor public amenities for the city as well. So I think it certainly needs is a desirable site for redevelopment. I do have some concerns, however, and some of them have been addressed by the developer. I'd like to compliment the developer. They've got a high-quality developer, high-quality architect, engineer, consultants, counsel, the whole nine yards. So I appreciate the work you have done, and I think you've certainly come a long way. But I think there are a few things as well to consider, both on this project and in future projects. If the staff could maybe switch back to the site plan view of this, is that possible, to turn this computer screen back to... For example, in this site, you can see in the middle, dead on, you've got a fairly large dead zone with the surface retail. And in this particular circumstance, it may be justified to get a high-quality specialty supermarket that we don't have right now. But I would say in general, going forward, this is a kind of use of a ground floor that we don't want to encourage, because it basically means you lose out on commercial activity on the ground floor that's an amenity to the community. And also, it tends to not enliven the ground floor as well for the pedestrian experience. As you can see, the developer has added these portico retail spaces, which I appreciate. But I think in other projects where there's not a significant amenity, such as a specialty grocery store that we really want in this city, that this kind of use should be discouraged on the ground floor. A few other comments and questions. This one's for the city attorney. Is there any issue with having a special exception that becomes operative upon a third party signing a lease or something like that? In other words, do you feel comfortable that that is something that you've worked out?
Yeah, we looked at that. I looked at it, and it's legally permissible to do it that way. I think the key thing is that really, anytime you have a special exception with development conditions or proffers, a special exception is not effective until the proffers or development conditions are complied with. And so effectively, that's what we're doing here with this lease condition. And so I think it is legally appropriate.
Okay. Also, I do share Mr. Snyder's concerns about the range of fiscal impact. And I would also, as he's mentioned, like to push that number up as high as we can, and as close to $1.2 million as we can. I have to say I'm not favorably inclined towards office use of the ground floor. I would like to either see retail or restaurant or some other kind of use other than office. Let's see what else we've got. I think as a city, too, at some point we should have a discussion about what our expectations are per acre for fiscal impact. We're having discussions now about, well, this is too much or too little. And I think we should, not necessarily in connection with this project, but take a step back and set forth some expectations for ourselves and the development community as to what we want from our commercial areas. Just a few more here. I guess also going to Mr. Snyder's comment about making sure the ground floor gets retailed, I would like to consider some condition that after some period of time, whether it's a year, 2 years, or some period of time, unleased space can be leased to the city at a nominal rent as a way to encourage the developer to get the space leased up, and if at some point it is not leased up, that the city would have an opportunity to put community uses in there at a reduced rent. I'd also have a question about the sidewalk widths. We heard, I think, in one comment that they were as narrow as 7 feet, or at least I saw that in some of the materials. It sounds like they've gotten larger. Maybe you could speak to that if you don't mind.
Yes, I'd be happy to. If we can use the pointer, I can point out. So on South Maple Street, we do have a varying width sidewalk, but the range is between 10 feet clear and 13 feet clear. And then on Tenor Hill Street, where you have the on-street parking, it is like 7.8 feet to 10 feet clear where you have no on-street parking. Then on South Washington, it is 14 to 15 feet clear. So when I say clear, I mean from the building face to unobstructed.
To the back of
zone.
the tree pits?
In some cases, I'm talking, yes, to the back of the tree pit, because it could be wider in other locations. And then we also have an additional 6 feet of restaurant space that's for outdoor dining in addition to the sidewalk clear zone.
And what are you assuming for the tree pits? Are you assuming the raised planters that are used on Broad Street, which actually have a fairly, probably 8 or 9 foot width from back of curb? Or are you assuming, the tree pits that are at grade?
We have assumed, like, for example, on Tenor Hill, that we would have a 5-foot tree pit on, I think 5 foot is the minimum in most cases. And we've been discussing with staff that that could be a variety of details. It could be flush, it could incorporate bioretention details, it could be raised. I think we're very open to working out the most flexible benefit to the tree pit and zone area to make sure we get soil volumes, but also allow for festivals and art fairs and other events to happen.
Yeah, I would encourage staff to try to use the tree pits that'll take up the minimum amount of sidewalk space. I think we do want to really strongly encourage a good pedestrian experience, and I think the tree pits, if used from Broad Street, would really impinge the clear space. I'd also like to encourage the developer to put as much outdoor seating between the portico areas as possible. It seems like those are nice nooks and crannies that could be well utilized to break up blank wall or dead wall otherwise. I guess in conclusion, I would just say that I think you guys have made some great progress. You got a great team, and I would encourage you to keep on heading in that direction. Thank you very much.
Other council members? Mr. Cannon?
Thank you. Welcome to the last 10 EDC meetings Redux with this level of detail. Again, we have boards and commissions that will also speak to that as well. I have to go back to the issue Phil was kind enough to mention the model that Johannah and I prepared and published. We're looking at, we just estimated that the school costs will go up at 10% per year, basically because of enrollment, massive pension increases. People don't like to talk about it, but they're driving the city's costs up significantly and will for the next couple of years, and of course, $100 million in capital expenses over a 3-year period. This project has no impact on those numbers. Okay? This is an issue of what do we want to do for that part of the city? What makes the most sense? How can we make it vibrant? We're going to have other solutions for the cost facing us. And personally, the way these are written, I don't know how you contract somebody to build 200 and some units, but after unit 75, if you don't have this, the construction stops. I don't know how you arrange to do that. I think it will fill, you're right, Dave, it may not be immediately, but it will fill. I've watched it happen at Spectrum, which I thought was never going to fill, let alone sell all of its condos, but now has Mad Fox, that has a restaurant, another restaurant, Moby Dick. It's filled with, I think, the exception of one place. But I don't think it's useful to get tangled up in thinking that this project, or even the Harris Teeter project, is going to solve the structural problems we have in financing our expenditures going forward, the majority of which are already in place with existing school costs. So this is not a terrific issue. This project stands on other legs, which I think is certainly worthy of a town hall, sure, but I would not be able to support these these new conditions without having them go to the boards and commissions first.
Other council members? Anything further? All right.
Yeah, I do. I think we'd all agree that we want to get to the top end of the projections. I think that benefits us all. And I see nothing here that gets us there. If we go forward with this project, it is, all we're assured of is about, assuming that the lease with the grocery store holds up, 544,000 net. And that's how many acres in this project?
2.2.
2.2. So, I mean, I think we need to do that as we move forward, and I'm not particularly, what should I say, absolutely committed to this approach, but I think if you don't have it, this is going to be a very disappointing project, and it's not going to generate what the city really needs to go forward, even as it generates a huge amount of risk regarding school costs going forward if you look at other apartment projects. So I appreciate that you've agreed with the town hall, and that town hall hopefully will have an opportunity for all of our citizens to look at all of these numbers. Medium term has been, and short term is proposed here, and the long-term results of this business model. So.
Okay. Other council members? All right, I'm going to try to add my comments, and I've got a couple questions, and then try to wrap it up and see where council is on this. A couple questions, and staff can get back to me on this and to the council members if they're so inclined. I know that there's been some back and forth between the consultants over the traffic study. What I'm interested in getting a sense of is what traffic volume, that's new traffic, does this project generate? If we can just get the Reader's Digest view of that and sort of the bottom line, it seemed like there was a bit of battle of experts going on. And traffic studies are not one of my keen areas, and I don't think it is for the rest of the council members, bar maybe Mr. Tartar on that. Two, I had a question about the commercial and residential, and this may be answerable tonight. There's 2 points of egress and ingress into the project, one on South Maple and the other on Washington. Do those both handle traffic for the residential and commercial in both of those drive aisles? So they're combined?
Let me answer that. This entry down here is primarily for the grocery. Grocery comes in and they either park below or they go up this ramp up into here. This entry is for the residential, and it's an exit only for the grocery. You know, I don't have the plan, the lower level plan, but the residential people would come in and go directly below, and the only exiting, well, this would also be the exit for the residential, and there would be kind of a secondary exit only for the grocery. So residential is separated. Let me go to the.
So the grocery does not have an entrance off Maple into the garage?
We envision this as an exit only for the grocery. This is the entry for the grocery. Let me go find the section and back up here. There it is. Yeah, this is the entry off of Maple. This garage would go down to here and go down to these 2 levels. This is primarily the residential. This parking and this parking is the grocery. People on South Washington would come in here and go either park on this level, or they would go up and park on this level. And the reason for that is we want to try to keep the grocery store parking as separate as we can from the residential.
Okay. The one ask I would have is working with planning staff and also the planning department, just making sure that the traffic flows, since it sounds like there is not a parking entrance on South Maple for the grocery store. I think in our long-term plans, we're hopefully going to energize that streetscape, not just along Washington, but also Maple, with projects that hopefully, if this does well, it'll incentivize other projects from coming along, and just making sure that works well for future developments coming online as well, that the traffic flows, the egresses, ingresses to the anchor tenant makes sense, and that we're looking at all those issues. So if we can just look at that a little bit more. And then two, this is something that I don't expect an answer for, but looking through the parking, I know that parking has been a huge issue. I know that various projects are requesting, lots of waivers from the parking code. This is apparently park to code. I don't know how you guys are doing it, but every other project says it can't be done. So, maybe that's for your all's benefit because you think it helps the project, but there's a complete disconnect with what you guys have been able to accomplish and what we're hearing from other developers. So this is more to staff, maybe working with the developer and sorting that out. When I read that, I'm like, where are the traffic, studies that say they need to mitigate traffic to get traffic reductions, and they weren't there. And other projects that we're looking at, it's like, we can't even keep it straight, nor, really understand what they're requesting with some of the traffic reductions that they're getting. So I'd like to get a better sense of that, not just for this project, but others. But there may be a way of working with you all if parking is an issue and costly, obviously, to underground. If there are ways of reducing it, still making it viable, perhaps we can deal with some of the other aspects, like the residential components of this, to bring unit counts down and get a better mix. So that's some thinking that I hope can go into that as well. A couple specific comments, looking through the staff comments and specifically Public Works. I believe that was attachment 2. There were some open items that struck me as being pretty significant that need to get addressed before reaching second reading on this project, and I won't belabor those, but I would just encourage staff to go back to those and work through those with the developer. On the voluntary concessions, one sticking point for me, and this gets to a comment that Ms. Berry made early on regarding traffic issues. We've got one situation in the city where a traffic light that was proffered hasn't gone up yet, and it's been years because it was cash proffer. From the voluntary concessions, it's up to X amount. No guarantee that the right signage is going to be there. That's sort of the developer, if they're going to be responsible for the traffic mitigation and flows, they need to just install it. And we know that it's a dangerous intersection there. It's not going to be on my watch that we didn't put a signal in right because we didn't quite get the VC right, and we find out later on that the cost is more than $250 and the city doesn't have the money to put in a traffic light, and we're 5 years into the project. That's just, we shouldn't go there. And then also I was very interested in the comments by your neighbors at Pearson Square. I thought that they had some very good points. It sounds like there's been some improvements made to address some of their concerns. So those are some of the questions that I had. I'm going to try to add my comments in and then also try to summarize what I've heard this evening, try to figure out the way forward on this. What I will say on more of the philosophical point, I do think this area needs redevelopment, and for me it's not just looking at how do we capitalize and recoup the maximum dollars per acre on a site, especially on a commercial site. It's really about the mix that we're getting in these projects, because I don't want to be in a situation where, at some point I won't be on council anymore. I'll be doing other things, and all of a sudden the legacy that we've left is that there's really no commercial space left in the city to build commercial for, and we have still a mix in the city that it's much more residential and we don't get the commercial numbers up, and we wonder why. And it's been an issue that I've pressed on for some time about how many, whether it's square feet, units, however we want to define it, how much residential on commercial property can we do that makes sense? And looking at it holistically, not one-off projects with, well, this looks good, the economics look good, let's move forward, but looking at it more holistically, and I think that's what Vice Mayor Snyder was getting at. I certainly have asked for that data before. I'm asking for it again. We're coming up against lots of residential projects that are before us now and possibly some in the future. I'd like to see that data and have that discussion before we move any of the projects to a final stage. So that's more of the philosophical point. I'm going to try to now summarize what I've heard this evening, and if I'm leaving anything out, I'm sure my fellow council members will let me know. And these are not in any particular order. First is a request for a shadow study in addressing further the massing that's happening on the Maple Street side. I believe that there were some questions about can the E of the building be reversed? That was a question that was raised. Some of the other questions or comments that I had written down were the issue about Levine, which I understand the EDC is going to take up Friday. 2 was fine-tuning the economic model, as we discussed, regarding school cap costs and also on the operating cost as well. We talked about the data and the need to understand better how many units or square feet, however we want to term it, the city can absorb on the commercial properties and putting residential on them. And finally, nailing down the commercial pieces. And I think on the grocery store, further work still needs to be done on it. I do have some concerns, even with the way it's phrased right now. So I hope that the city attorney and Mr. Lasso can work together to strengthen that language. I'm not there as it is right now. And then 2, that leaves the other pieces of the commercial. And I echo some of the thoughts that Vice Mayor Snyder had, not wedded necessarily with what the city manager has provided as a starting point, but we do need to address them. How we get there, I think we've got some time to work with the developer and the community on how to deal with those. And it could be things like what the city managers possibly, or the city attorneys proposed, to performance bonds, et cetera, to create some of the incentives. Mr. Tartar had one, such as the ability to rent the space back to the city at a nominal fee to create some of the incentives and yet put the space to good use. So I think those are all very good ideas to help and make sure that the incentives are there to build out that space and also fill it. So I think that summarizes the comments I've heard so far. Am I missing anything, council members? Mr. Callen.
Not that you missed anything. You mentioned the word holistic. The idea would be, as I understand it, from the EDC's point of view, from what I've talked to our planning director, is if you have growth at where the Harris Teeter is, and you have an anchor where the Tinner Reserve is, you would then grow toward the middle, and those properties which aren't yielding as a lot would be then more suitable for long-term development. And I forgive the repetition, but I'm not going to ask too much forgiveness. We keep looking at $500,000 here, $600,000 here. It makes a difference. But if we're worried that in 2 years or 3 years, the developer can't get a lease for this, the city's going to be in such problems. It's going to be very difficult to survive. As it is, we don't have enough development projects on the books. And I'm not saying they should be mixed use or apartments, but there's nothing going on that is even close to addressing the financial stress of the city. We are spending an awful lot of time arguing about numbers that do not have a terrific amount of impact. Yes, let's get the maximum. I suspect the developer would like to get the maximum as well. I can't believe we're working at opposite poles here. So the idea would be, okay, let's see what we can do, but I don't want to hinder the project if it takes an extra year to get the highest quality restaurant while the building is being built. I don't see why we would force or really make it a condition that that has to be rented out at 75 units or 150. Maybe, as you say, Mr. Mayor, we can talk about something. But this as proposed, I think, is very restrictive. I think it's unimplementable and isn't going to help move this project forward. Thank you.
All right. And again, let me try to clarify a point that I was attempting to make earlier. Agree with Councilmember Callen that this project isn't going to solve the city's problem, and no single project is. My goal is simply not to exacerbate the problem, and at the end of the day, as I mentioned, make sure that we've got properties left in the city where we can get a better mix between commercial and residential. And that's why I've asked for the data since I've been on council probably, is to try to do that holistically. I know that Jim Snyder, the head of our development and planning, is trying to do that through the area planning process, and we've tried to overlay that. So I commend his work on it, but we need to get a little bit more into the weeds on this and begin to tackle the issue of how much residential can we do in a particular area. There's various ways that we can look at it, but we need to have a measure of measuring these various projects. Again, my goal is I don't want to leave the city in a situation when I'm done being on council of finding that we don't have commercial properties all of a sudden that can be redeveloped for office, hotel, et cetera, you name it. Vice Mayor Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just clarify then where we are. I think the final, the motion has been made, and I heard a commitment from Councilmember Kalin that a part of that can be a town hall meeting to look at the mixed-use record as well as the kind of data I think the mayor is talking about. And I understand that we don't have tonight a way to assure the upper end of the return. I'm willing to work with other members of council and the developer to figure out how to do that, but this is not an attractive project at the lower end of the return. It just isn't, considering the risks involved. So I may support going forward, providing that we have the kind of community discussion I think is absolutely essential at this point, because I think we're at a potentially positive, but also potentially negative juncture in the long-term financial stability of the city. And this kind of project, if it's done right, can be a part of the positive future or can add simply to the kinds of operational costs and capital costs that will be quite a strain to meet from the standpoint of education. So that's what I conclude, and I'm willing to move forward with that in mind.
If I can get a motion to go past 10:30.
Move we go past 10:30.
If I can get a second.
Second.
But
All
not
in-
long after 10:30.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we're going past 10:30. All right. Ms. Berry?
Could I clarify something? Actually, I was the one who made the motion, and I am not willing to make the amended motion. I'm not going to put words in Mr. Kalin's mouth, but I would like to keep dithering on this topic to a minimum. We have discussed what we want the city to look like in vision documents, in area plans, in streetscape plans. We've discussed the character and the nature of development of the city for some time. I don't see the purpose of a town hall. We've had these discussions certainly before I came on council and during the time I've come on council. I don't think these discussions are going to yield anything more substantive. Of course, it's always important to have public input, but we've had all the venues we can have for public input. I am anxious to see this move forward to boards and commissions. I don't know what the protocol is, but because I made the motion and I'm not willing to accept this amendment, do I withdraw it and have somebody else make the motion?
Yeah. Right. The way to handle that under Robert's rules is if Mr. Snyder wants to make a motion to amend as he's described it, he can do that. It would then need to be seconded, and there would be a vote on Mr. Snyder's motion, up or down, by majority vote.
And that doesn't change the actual amendment. It simply changes the amendment so that it includes the town hall.
Correct.
I think that's
Right.
And the data,
exactly
I
right.
think, on this.
Yeah, and if Mr. Snyder's motion passes, then that basically replaces the original motion, and we're done.
Yeah, I would move the original motion with an amendment. The amendment would be to call for a town hall meeting to look at the record and going forward with mixed-use developments and the data that the mayor had asked for.
If I can get a second? No second on that?
It dies for lack of a second.
Okay. And can I second or not?
You would need to relinquish the chair.
Okay. Why don't I relinquish the chair, and that way we can at least debate this.
I'll make it easier on you. I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All right, why don't we take a roll call vote on that?
On the amendment.
This is on the
whether to amend
amendment.
it or not.
Oh. Okay.
Ms.
Thank you,
Berry?
Mr. Pepe.
Ms. Berry?
No.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
No.
Mr. Pepe?
No.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tarter?
No.
Mayor Baroukh?
Yes.
The motion fails.
All right. Council members, how about, that had both components of the town hall and the data. Does council,
Just the town hall.
Just the town hall.
I think it was actually both, but
That's the way now.
I seconded a motion that had the town hall. That was my
Okay.
understanding.
how do council members feel about getting the data? I hope that will go through, to be honest. This is to get the data, this is part of what we've been trying to do with the area planning about how many units, whether we do it by unit count or whether we do it by square footage of residential, do we want to put onto commercial properties?
Does it belong here? Or does it belong
It
in
can,
that larger discussion?
we can put it into a larger discussion, but we've been trying to struggle with this and it doesn't get done.
Let's just get this.
So I'm happy to do it as a separate motion, but I think we need to provide some direction. We've been dithering about it since I've been on council. So I'm happy to ask that a council member put forward a motion that the city manager gets this done by a time certain.
So moved. As an amendment.
As an amendment or a separate standalone thing?
As an amendment.
We're just gonna-
So I've got a motion, is there a second? I'm gonna relinquish again, so we can vote this one as well. So I'm gonna second it,
Do I get to be mayor?
if you'd like, for about 30 seconds.
Adjourned.
I second.
All right, we've got a second on it, it's my second.
Could I have clarification on the motion?
Yes.
Please.
Your training, this is part of your training process, Veronica.
You're gonna thank Kathy, right?
So what you've got with this amendment about data,
More than just something about data.
Can we have the roll call?
you're
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, the motion was to provide data on the amount of residential units or area that the city can absorb or should put onto commercial properties.
in,
Who makes that decision?
is it an algorithm? I mean,
Can you help us out with can absorb?
Can't, about how many we should put into the city. I mean, what are you asking, Mr. Kalin?
I don't know what we expect of the, of management here, of the city manager. I mean, that's a question of vision, and that's a council decision. How much do we want to do? There has to be measured against a separate parameter or criteria, of which you could say, we've reached the saturation point, or we haven't reached the saturation point, or how much we want or we don't. If you have more information on how you'd like to handle it, I'm glad to consider what you're asking for.
My point is, I'd like to have considered how many units we're willing to put onto our commercial properties. At what point is it no longer economically feasible to do that?
Why is it attached to this document?
It doesn't need to be. Again, I'm happy to do it separately, but we need some direction to get this done.
I think you'd get further if it wasn't attached to this.
I'm happy to remove it as long as we're willing to take this up, and I want it by a date certain.
One thing that I think I understand the question is synced up with our school capital planning and our other capital planning that we have in the city. What tied to that, what type of residential growth should we try to forecast? And I think we probably need a little bit more give and take to identify exactly what questions we would try to answer, because this analysis is going to be complex. It's going to be dynamic because there are a lot of drivers to that, not just mixed-use development. If we could take this discussion and sort of, I think the desire for some more long-range planning on this question to a work session to discuss, I could work with planning staff and school staff to address what type of information we could bring to bear, what we have available, what types of questions we would try to answer in such a study. I think we'd have a more fruitful discussion and a better outcome.
I'm happy to, as mayor, I'm happy to work on putting that on to a work session as early as next week, but it's got to happen. We're dealing with a massive number of requests coming in for units right now, and I want to get that work underway. And it doesn't, in my view, doesn't need to be attached to this, but it's got to be done before we start taking some of the final votes on these projects.
That's the
Essentially,
question.
yeah. Exactly, and I'm happy to reserve, work session time on this so we can scope this out better rather than trying to do this from the dais, just so we all understand what it is. But I just want to be clear that I don't want to make these final decisions. This is not to, stop this from going to boards and commissions, but I don't want to start taking votes and whoever gets in first, through the door, gets their, ticket punched and can move forward, and then whoever falls in next after the study gets scrutinized, et cetera. So I'd like to get the study done sooner than later. We've been sort of waiting on this for a while.
That's okay, but I have to comment to the city manager that you're not going to be able to do a dynamic study, because when you do dynamic, the drivers start to drive other drivers, and it becomes a very complex piece of analysis. So you have to understand the limits into which you're going to be operating. So you don't want to promise a dynamic model because you won't be able to deliver that.
I think that's exactly right, which is why I'm worried about getting a direction from the dais without having some interaction as to what to define a study that we can deliver on. And, we want to do that, we want to work with you on it, but there needs to be some give and take in terms of what's feasible.
I'm happy to do that at the next work session as early as Monday and get this moving. But we need to have some of the analysis done before we start taking final votes on these projects. That I feel strongly about. So I'm happy to withdraw it as long as I get council support, or else I'm happy to have folks vote on it right now. So I'll withdraw it, and I'm happy to bring it back.
He made the
I made the motion because I relinquished.
Except it's not really a motion, because nobody ever really articulated what the motion was, so I don't think we actually have a motion.
I'll withdraw the motion and move forward according to what the mayor has suggested. I think the key thing here is, regardless of how you phrase it, that we have a full-scale, complete community discussion, not just of this project, but where we're going financially, how sustainable we are in the future, and how, if we're not sustainable, how to correct that and become sustainable. And I think it's very important to do that before we approve this project with a significant number of residential units, again, setting a precedent for more of these kinds of developments in the future. So I would hope and ask everyone for a complete community discussion of these issues before we bring this to another vote.
Is this a date certain?
Well, we'll get to that motion separately. We can talk about that separately, but right now it sounds like we've got a clean, we're back to just the motion as it was on the sheet. So, which is the proposed motion, which was moved to refer TR 13-06 and TR 13-07 to the various boards and commissions and schedule public hearing and council action on May 13th, and advertise the same according to law. So that's the motion that's on the table. There's been no amendments to it at this point. It's clean. And then we'll take up the other work session issue in just a minute.
Okay.
All right?
Go.
Can I just ask a question? The May 13th date, what would the nature of council action be? Simply to reconsider it, or is it? I mean, what
No,
do we-
the May 13th
We will
could,
receive
several
the
things.
information.
May 13th could be, we hear the information, we vote it for final passage, we defer it, we do what we think is appropriate at that time.
So it's an important date. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
But again, it's not one that necessarily leads to passage up or down. It could lead to deferral, for example.
It could.
It could.
Could not.
It could not.
Okay.
We just don't know yet. All right. Anything else, council? All right. If I can have the roll call, please.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tartar?
Yes.
Mayor Baroukh?
Yes.
The motion passes. Thank you, council.
All right. No, just leave it as soon as we'll bring it back. We can discuss the data and work session issue when we get to business not on the agenda. If I can get a motion on the consent, please? Or Ms. Berry, if there's anything you want to report out on.
I did. I just wanted to, on behalf of the Appointments Committee, I was very pleased to put forward the roster of, once again, very impressive citizen volunteers, and we thank them for their service. This obviously is a fascinating topic to everybody sitting in here, and so a guy walks into a bar, and he says, ouch.
Carry on, Ms. Berry.
I move the consent items.
All right.
But I did want to...
Please finish the joke.
Wait, that's it? But, wait a minute, there's only one other thing, and thank you, Dave. Yeah, I should quit while I'm ahead. Officer Freed signaled a very important issue, and Mr. Laporta, who was walking out of the room, also seconded this, which is, oh, that's okay, you know, what the hey. That there hasn't been a meeting of the Towing Advisory Board for some time, and I've been talking to city staff about that. There's an interesting dynamic that I wonder if we can, at some point, address about Towing Advisory. And now I'll tell a guy walks into a bar joke.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dave.
If I can get a motion on the consent.
Move the consent.
If I can get a second.
Second.
If I can get the roll call.
Ms. Berry?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes.
Mr. Kalen?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Mr. Tartar?
Yes.
Mayor Baroukh?
Yes.
Thank you, council. The motion passes.
Thank you. All right, we're on business not on the agenda, so I want to take a minute to talk about what we had just talked about, and it's unfortunate that the developers is not here. What I propose that we do is, for purposes of scoping, I know that this is getting pretty late, is putting it on a work session for Monday. Why? What do we currently have on the agenda on this coming Monday?
I'm trying to, do you have it on the, do we have a fifth Monday? Is that?
How about a fifth Monday, Dave?
No, we don't have a fifth.
Huh?
So it's March 4th. It's the March 4th meeting. Let's see if we can call it up. So this was last updated on the 22nd. So we had tentatively a report back on the Harris Teeter project from the informal referral to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did meet tonight to meet with the developer. I don't know the outcome from that meeting, but we'll have more on that. We also have tentatively scheduled the IJ contracts, a discussion with, on fire in particular, with with Chief Jim Schwartz.
All right.
who-
Yep,
and-
I think
and the
we can
volunteers.
put this on, because I think the work session is probably gonna be pretty light. So why don't we go ahead and add that on to the 4th?
Yeah.
The IJ piece, I think, is gonna be the longest piece.
Okay.
That we're gonna have to deal with.
I believe that split lots will not be ready. We've got more work we need to do on that and the impervious coverage.
All right.
So
Well-
yes, the bottom line is we've got.
Yep, so we've got time. So why don't we put it on the 4th to have the scoping discussion about it? Rather than try to do this from,
Sorry to interrupt, we may also need a closed session to discuss the water transaction.
okay,
That's right, that was.
okay. So we can also add that in. That's the water transaction? Yes. Okay. All right, so that would be the data scoping discussion for, of residential / commercial, or residential on commercial. All right. Mr. Cameron?
I think we're going to have one decision before the May meeting, and that is we're going to have budget discussions, and we're facing a $3 million shortfall, and a good chunk of that is related to school costs. So what we're looking at also is, what are we going to do on that side as well regarding, what kind of saturation point also is going to depend on what type of school budget growth you're planning to absorb. Again, this is part of the dynamic concerns. And by the time we vote on it or we have it come up in the 13th, we will already have started to make decisions on what that study is going to look like. Thank you.
Other council members? Ms. Berry?
Two issues. One, I received a note extending congratulations to Kathy Bushell from the League of Women Voters, who wanted to congratulate Kathy on her excellent service as they tried to find a venue for their Forum on Community and School Safety. Kathy was apparently very, very helpful in arranging the Dogwood Room, and so principals from the League of Women Voters, Edie Snyder and Linda Garvelink took time to recognize Kathy's initiative, and I just simply wanted to bring that to everyone's attention. And the other piece is Dave Snyder and I attended a neighborhood meeting on Sunday, sponsored by Peter Adrians, on this whole Transition US movement, Transition Falls Church in particular, and I would refer people to the Transition US website to learn more about this movement. I want to thank Peter for his leadership and commend this work to all of our citizens. Thanks.
Other council members? Vice Mayor Snyder?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. I want to express my appreciation to the Tinner Hill Foundation for the opportunity that we had at the James Lee Community Center to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Emancipation Proclamation. It was a great opportunity to participate in that. Secondly, I wanted to recognize one of our citizens, Dan Stabil, who is the leader of assuring that the Italian language be part of advanced placement courses. And he was the leader of a major event at the Italian Embassy. So I had the opportunity to participate there, and I wanted to give a shout out to Dan Stabil as one of our many great citizens. I also wanted to recognize Ken Feltman, who and his organization that sponsored a opportunity for candidates, state and local, on a bipartisan basis or nonpartisan basis to meet people in the community. And we had Tom Clinton and Kathy Kay there, as well as candidates for lieutenant governor. So I wanted to give a shout out to Ken Feltman for organizing that and the great job that he did. My understanding is that that will be televised on our local TV station. Also wanted to make a point again that the League of Women Voters sponsored an event on school safety, and everyone should look at that program. It featured the superintendent of schools and the chief of police. Critical issue, and I think people will come away with the sense that it's being managed every bit as effectively as it can be. Thank you.
Just note the holding of the Whammies, which a couple of us were privileged to attend, and evidence was caught in the newspaper that we were there. But it was a nice event, and we should...
In spite of what you told your wife?
She knew where I was. We should do all we can, I think, to keep that group in the city and, you know, take more advantage of all the people who come into town for that one event to get them to come out here more often for other events in the city.
All right. Other council members? All right. And I attended the grand opening of Curry Mantra, which is a new Indian restaurant that's opened up in the city. So it's by the Party Store.
Bicycle Bridge Shopping Center,
Yeah.
that's what we all know it by, next to the UPS store and Parties.
Yeah. So it's their second store. He's opening up a third. West End Plaza, that's it. And
Oh, the Bike Bridge Shopping
he
Center.
has gotten very good reviews from the Post for his other location in Vienna. So, all right. If I can, I think that's everything on the agenda. Anything else, council members?
Do I get to do this now? I move we adjourn.
If I can get a second.
Second.
I heard Ms. Barry's voice first. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We're adjourned. Thank you.